Hello guys, it's your friend Naruto Fanfics, back again with another awesome fanfic. Which is what if Naruto became a demon chosen king with Sharingan and built a monster harem with Fem. Gaara, Temari, Yugito, Fu, Konan, Ryazetsu, Fem. Haku, Hinata, Karen and Samui. Part 1. If you enjoy it, please show your support by hitting the like button and subscribing for more fanfics like this. And now let's get started. We open up on a 6-year-old boy with sun blonde hair, brilliant blue eyes, and 3 whisker marks on each cheek. This boy's name is Naruto Uzumaki. And today was his birthday and also the anniversary of the defeating of the Kyuubi no Kitsune. But instead of celebrating, he was currently running for his life through the streets of Konoha. Who was chasing him, you might ask? Well, that would be a mob of 20 villagers and about 10 mid-chunin ninja. They each branded a weapon of their choice, some knives and kunai, some torches and pitchforks. Naruto was surprisingly fast for a 6-year-old, but when you are chased around like a wild animal on a daily basis, you pick stuff up. Naruto dreaded his birthday for 2 reasons. 1. He was always reminded of the fact that he didn't have a family to celebrate with. 2. The villagers and some ninja always chase him and beat and torture him and call him a demon. He would always ask why they did this, but they just said that demons don't deserve to live. He didn't know what he did to offend these people so much to where they wanted to kill him and call him demon, but he never got an answer out of his attackers. And so, he ran. He quickly ducked into an alleyway and watched them run by from the shadows. After he couldn't see them anymore, he let out a sigh of relief and stepped out of the alley. "Well, hello demon," a voice said from his right. He snapped his head up quickly and saw 3 ninja standing there with 7 villagers. They looked at the defenseless boy with as much hatred as they could fit into a gaze. "See, I told you we should stay back unless they missed something," a ninja with brown hair and glasses said while puffing out his chest in a prideful manner. "Should we call the others back?" one of the villagers said while hitting a bat into his other hand. "No, today he's all ours," the biggest ninja said with a nasty sneer. He seemed to be the leader because as soon as he said that, everyone else nodded in agreement. "Please, why do you do this?" Naruto asked, hoping for an answer he knew he wouldn't get. "Shut up, demon. You killed my wife," a villager who looked about 27 years old said. He said the last part with a look that clearly wanted blood. "But I didn't kill anyone. I'm just a kid," Naruto tried pleading with the mob in front of him. "Enough talking. Let's get some payback," the leader said. Before Naruto could take one step, he was knocked to the ground forcibly by 3 sets of hands. One picked him up and put his back against the wall. Another one went and held his arm out to the side and motioned someone over. The last ninja came at Naruto with a kunai in his right hand. Naruto, seeing what he was going to do, tried to get his arm free, but the ninja was obviously stronger than him. The last ninja stuck the kunai into his palm and pinned it to the wall. They proceeded to do this with the other hand and also the feet all the while. Naruto did not scream out once. After that was done, they got one of the torches and held a kunai over it to get it red hot. When they got it to the temperature they wanted it, they walked over to Naruto once more. They then proceeded to torture him with the heated blade for 2 hours. Naruto held out as long as he could but was eventually forced to let a scream out. The mob, liking that sound, continued to do what they pleased. Once they felt that they have done enough for tonight, they let him down. But instead of lowering him to the ground, they just pulled the kunai out slowly, one by one, earning a hiss and a whimper from Naruto. They were about to leave when the villager who had yelled about his wife earlier slowly approached the downed form of Naruto, who was barely conscious after his torture time. The villager had a blank look on his face and a kunai in hand. He knelt down next to the boy and poked Naruto in the chest over his heart with the kunai, drawing a little blood. One of the ninja, seeing what he was doing, quickly yelled in panic, "Hey, we can't kill him, he's the Hokage's favorite. I don't care anymore. It deserves to die." He screamed the last part at no one in particular and followed up by plunging the blade into Naruto's chest. Naruto's eyes widened before they closed completely, falling into unconsciousness. Naruto's mindscape. Naruto woke up in what looked like a sewer of some sort, but not any he has seen. And yes, he has seen many sewers. He was in a large circular room with 6 tunnels around the room leading to different areas. Along the walls were pipes of 3 colors. The biggest pipes were glowing light blue while the second biggest were glowing blood red. The third and smallest were small pipes that were interwoven between the other 2 and they were glowing dark purple. "Hey, Kit, come here," a malevolent voice was heard coming from the tunnel right in front of him. Naruto, thinking he was dead and the Shinigami was going to greet him, went towards the voice. When he got to the room where he thought he heard the voice, he could see a blood-red aura coming from it. Looking inside, he saw a huge room that had a cage that went wall to wall and floor to ceiling. In the middle of the cage was a big piece of paper with the kanji for seal on it. Stepping closer, he could see a silhouette of a giant beast inside the cage. Before he could say anything, the beast spoke in the same malevolent voice as before, "So you finally visit me. I was starting to feel left out." And that's when Naruto finally saw the beast in front of him. It was a giant orange fox with blood-red eyes with slitted pupils. It had the upper body of a human with clawed fingers on giant hands which were on the ground to support the huge beast. Naruto could just barely make out the 9 swishing tails behind it. "What are you, the Shinigami?" Naruto questioned, feeling a bit intimidated but hid it well. "Do I look like the god of death to you?" The fox asked back with a raised eyebrow. "Well, no, but I've been fooled by appearances before," Naruto said while looking down, remembering the awful memory of his so-called friend. "No, I am not Yami. I am the great Kyuubi no Kitsune. Destroyer of villagers. Greatest of the Biju." He screamed out the last part and held his hands up in a dramatic way to try and get Naruto to cower in fear. The reaction he got caught him by surprise. Naruto just looked up at him with a bored expression. "So where are we?" he questioned. The Kyuubi sweat dropped at that and looked at Naruto with a tick mark on his forehead. "We are in your mindscape. Which, might I say, is a dump," he said with a tone that showed his distaste. He was yet again surprised when Naruto spoke again. "I'm sorry, I didn't know you were here. And how did you get inside me?" he questioned with his eyebrow raised. "I was sealed into you when I was forced to attack your village," he said with hatred painted all across his face. "Forced," was Naruto's response. "Yes, I was pulled out of my previous container by an Uchiha and then put under a genjutsu and forced to attack Konoha." Kyuubi spoke with disdain. "So, you didn't want to attack my home?" Naruto asked. "Well, I don't really care about it, but at the time I had no intention to attack." He spoke with no shame. Naruto's sweat dropped at his bluntness but shook it off and spoke again. "So what now?" "Now you are being taken to the hospital by the Hokage and a couple of Anbu ninja," Kyuubi said nonchalantly. "Wait, I'm not dead. What about the kunai to my chest?" Naruto asked, confused. "It missed your heart, so I'm healing you, but this is the last time." "Clumsy little brat," he whispered the last part but Naruto heard him just fine and smiled. "So I guess that we have time to talk then?" Naruto asked, wanting to get to know his tenant better. "Yes, I have a few things I want to tell you. You won't wake up till morning, so we got all night," Kyuubi said while Naruto looked up expectantly. "Naruto, your parents were some of the bravest people I knew. My last container was your mother, so I got to know her quite a bit. But I'm sorry to say that I didn't know your father that well." Kyuubi spoke to his current container. Naruto smiled at the mention of his parents. Hey, Kyuubi, what were their names if you don't mind me asking? First of all, you may call me Kurama, that is my real name. Secondly, your parents. Your mother's name was Kushina Uzumaki, also known as the Red Death of Konoha. Your father on the other hand was none other than the Yondaime Hokage, Minato Namikaze, also known as the Yellow Flash. Kurama explained. To say that Naruto was shocked was an understatement if there ever was one. He was so stunned that he couldn't even talk. He could just stand there staring at the beast in front of him with wide eyes and an open mouth. My parents, he paused for a couple of seconds before he yelled, were so totally awesome. Kurama could only chuckle at his container's reaction. Okay, Kit, calm down. Now when you wake up I'm going to put you through a very rigorous training regimen to get your body up to par. I will not settle with having a weak container. Really? That's awesome. I'm going to be the strongest ninja out there and I'm going to protect all my precious people. So, what training did you have in mind? Naruto asked with a raised eyebrow. Well, first of all, I am going to have you work on your taijutsu to get your body up to snuff. That means you will have to eat more than ramen. In fact, I am making a rule right now. You are not allowed to eat ramen more than once a week until your body meets my requirements. What? But that's the best food in the world. And it's not anyone else will sell me any good food. He spoke the last part quietly but Kurama heard him just fine. You aren't going to be buying any food. Seeing his confused expression, he continued. You will move out of that old, crappy apartment of yours and move into training ground 44. There I will teach you how to hunt animals and pick healthy berries and other herbs for you to eat. You will need to get your Hokage's permission to live there but I doubt he will mind. He said, chuckling to himself. Okay, anything else I need? Yes, you need to ask your Hokage for some chakra weights, kunai, shuriken, some storage seals, exploding tags, some chakra paper, and a book on sealing. I plan on teaching you some fuinjutsu. The great beast explained. Oh, and make him take you to a clothes shop and get you out of that god-awful orange jumpsuit. Naruto just pouted at that. This jumpsuit had kept him warm when he was on the streets. And, he had evaded Anbu in it whenever he pulled off a prank. Oh, it looks like you're waking up. Remember to ask your Hokage about the equipment. And with that, Naruto vanished from his mindscape. This might just be fun. Outside, Naruto woke up and opened his eyes only to clamp them down tight when the morning sun hit his eyes. Once his eyes were used to the light, he looked around and saw that he was in a hospital room and to his left was a smiling man sitting down in a chair. How do you feel, Naruto-kun? Hiruzen Sarutobi asked his surrogate grandson. Oh, I'm fine, Gigi. Though I do have some news. Naruto told his grandfather figure. He then spent the next couple of minutes telling the Hokage about Kurama and how he didn't mean to attack the village. And how he wanted to train Naruto to become strong enough to protect his precious people. Leaving out the part about him knowing who his parents were. Well, if you believe him then I guess it's okay. I will get the equipment as soon as possible and we will go shopping as soon as you're checked out. Although, I will have to give you a pass to go into that training ground. And I will have someone go with you just in case something happens. Thank you, Gigi. I am better now, so can I go get checked out? Naruto asked expectantly. If you're really feeling better then I don't see a problem with it. The Hokage said with a smile. 5 minutes later, once Naruto was checked out, the duo started walking towards the clothing shop. The people that would usually glare and curse at him were unusually quiet now that he was with the Hokage. As soon as they reached the clothing store, Naruto rushed in to try and find an outfit he liked. After a couple of minutes of searching, Naruto decided on a dark orange shirt with a black, zip-up jacket, black shinobi pants and black sandals. After buying a couple of the same outfits, they started heading towards the weapons shop. Once they got there, Naruto did as recommended and got 200 kunai and 200 shuriken, 50 exploding tags, and 25 storage seals. When they were about to pay, something out of the corner of his eye caught Naruto's attention. When he walked over to where it was, he was in awe. Right in front of him were two twin swords. I suck at descriptions, so I will leave a link to the picture on my account. While he was staring at them, he failed to notice a girl about a year older than himself approach. "You like those swords?" the girl asked him. "Yeah, they're awesome." He then turned to look who he was talking to and had to hide a blush. The girl in front of him had brown hair put up into twin buns that looked like panda ears. She wore a pink shirt, green pants with a weapons pouch strapped to her right leg, and blue shinobi sandals. "Well, I'm glad. I made them with my dad. I'm 10-10 by the way," she said while sticking her hand out. Naruto Uzumaki. "Nice to meet you," he said while taking her hand and shaking once before letting go. "Wait, did you say you made these?" "Yeah, with my dad's help, of course. My dad is the owner of this shop." "Oh, cool. Well, I think I am going to buy your swords," he said. "Really? You're the first person to take interest in them," she said, shocked. "Heck yeah, they're awesome. I can see you put a lot of effort into them," he stated with his fox-like grin causing her to blush a little bit. "Well, why don't you bring them to the counter with the rest of your stuff and we can ring you up?" she said with a smile. "Sure," he replied. Meanwhile, Sarutobi was watching Naruto and a little girl talk while looking at the two swords in front of them. When he saw the girl get a small blush, a smile formed on the old Hokage's face. He continued to watch them until they walked over towards the counter with the swords. "Got everything, Naruto?" Sarutobi asked with a smile. "Yep, and I made a new friend. Meet 10-10. Her dad owns the shop," Naruto said while introducing his new friend who was a little nervous at meeting the Hokage. "Hello, Hokage-sama," she said while taking a deep bow. "Haha, no need to be so formal. You can just call me Hokage or something like that," he said with a kind smile. She then nodded with a smile before leaving to go into the back room. Before she left though, she said a quick goodbye to her new friend. After she got to the back room, she went to the window where she could see the store and just stared at the cute boy who she could now call her friend. "What you staring at 10-10? Said a voice behind her. She jumped and looked at her dad with an embarrassed blush adorning her face. "Nothing, Dad, just watching the store," she lied. "Oh, really? It has nothing to do with the blonde boy who was leaving?" he questioned his daughter. "What?" she said as she whipped her head around to see her new friend grabbing the bags full of his new weapons off of the counter. "Haha, that's what I thought. 10-10 has her first crush," he said with hidden glee. "What? No, I don't. He's like a year younger than me. And I barely even know him," she lied. "So what you're saying is you'd like to get to know him more?" he teased. "Yeah," she admitted with a sigh. Her father just smiled at that and started making plans to set up a play date for his daughter and her crush with Naruto and Sarutobi. Meanwhile, Naruto and Sarutobi were having a very similar talk. "So, what about the chakra weights and chakra paper?" Naruto asked after being embarrassed by the old Hokage. "I have those in my office. That's where we are headed now," Sarutobi said with a smile. "Okay, Gigi," Naruto replied with his own smile. 5 minutes later, once they reached the Hokage mansion, they went straight to the old man's office. When they got there, Sarutobi went to one of his cabinets and opened it and pulled out a couple of weights with a strange seal on them and a couple of white pieces of paper. "Here you go, Naruto, but I would like to ask you a favor," Sarutobi said. "Thank you. What is it, Gigi?" Naruto asked with a raised eyebrow. "Can you use the chakra paper now?" I want to see your chakra nature for myself. He asked his surrogate grandson with a hint of giddiness. I don't see why not. He said with a smile. Okay, thank you. First you need to concentrate and clear your mind and look within yourself to find your chakra. When you find it, imagine grabbing it and having it flow into your hand and then into the paper. Sarutobi explained. Okay, I'll try. Naruto then got into a meditative position with the paper in his hand. After a couple of minutes, Naruto suddenly opened his eyes just as the paper split into 3 pieces. The first piece got shredded into tiny pieces. The second piece got really wet. And the final piece crinkled. Sarutobi looked shocked at this revelation. Naruto had 3 chakra natures: wind, water, and lightning, with wind being the most prominent. Well Naruto, it looks like you have 3 chakra natures: wind, water, and lightning. Hold on and I will get some scrolls for chakra control exercises and a couple of jutsu for each nature. Sarutobi stated before going to get the scrolls. You hear that, Kurama? 3 chakra natures, Naruto thought, trying to talk to his tenant. Yeah, I heard. You will have to work hard to master these elements, Kurama stated to his container. I know. I also know that this won't be easy. But if it makes me strong enough to protect my precious people, then I will do anything. That's the spirit, Kit, Kurama said. Here you go Naruto, Sarutobi said, breaking Naruto out of his mental conversation. Thank you Gigi. Just you wait, I'll come back stronger than you can even imagine. And then I'm coming for that hat of yours, he said with determination while pointing at the Hokage's hat. And I will give it to you gladly, he said with a smile. Naruto was about to leave when he heard the Hokage cough and turned around. Be careful Naruto-kun, he said with a sad smile. Naruto ran back to Sarutobi and hugged him tightly. I will Hokage Gigi. He then left and leapt onto the rooftops heading towards his apartment to get what few stuff he actually owned. After getting his stuff, he went back onto the rooftops towards the training ground and his new home. He had a huge smile on his face as he was eager to get stronger and prove himself to this village. Naruto was currently fighting for his life against what looks like a giant snake. He was inside Training Ground 44, also known as the Forest of Death, training when this snake came along and attacked him. He was trying to work on his chakra control exercises by walking up a tree with only chakra. Now, the snake was about to take a bite out of Naruto, but it was too slow. Naruto sidestepped the snake and stabbed it in the eye with his sword. He stood up straight and looked around at all the damage their fight had caused. There were trees laying on their sides, burning bushes, and craters in the ground. He sighed and went back to his campsite, which consisted of 1 tent, 1 sleeping bag, a duffel bag full of his stuff including sword polish and sheaths. Well, back to training I guess, Naruto said with a sigh. Damn right, it took you too long to take down that snake. For that you will get extra laps push-ups to do today, Kurama said with a sadistic grin. Oh come on, that snake was huge. And I'm already doing 200 push-ups a day, Naruto complained. Are you backtalking me, brat? Kurama warned. No, sir, Naruto said with a sigh as he got down to do his push-ups. It had been 3 weeks since he had gone on his little training trip with his tenant and it was paying off better than he could have imagined. He now had a lean, muscular body but not bulky because of his age. He was built for speed and power in his punches. Kurama was in the progress of teaching him a taijutsu style that would fit his body type. He liked to call it Foxy Fists, but Naruto said he would think of a better name, much to the fox's disappointment. Once he was done with his 200 push-ups, with interest, he got up to finish his chakra exercises. He could almost run up and down the tree 10 times holding 85 pounds in less than 5 minutes. But before he could start his exercises again, Kurama spoke in his mind. Kit, I'm sending you mental images of a jutsu I want you to learn. It's called the Kage Bunshin no Jutsu or the Shadow Clone Jutsu. This jutsu will allow you to create hard copies of yourself that will be able to do extra exercises for you. The best part is that when they are dispelled, you retain their memories, which makes them perfect for practical training or recon missions. Kurama explained while sending him the one seal for the jutsu. Oh, okay. Thank you, Kurama. I'll get to work on this right away. Naruto replied to his tenant. As Naruto put his hands into the hand seal that looked like a plus sign, he focused on splitting his chakra evenly into another clone. Shadow Clone Jutsu, he called out, and when he opened his eyes he could see about 60 perfect clones of himself. Okay, 20 of you will go work on sealing and calligraphy. 20 of you will work on chakra control exercises. 20 of you will work on the jutsu in the scrolls. The last 20 will be split in half. The first 10 will work on kenjutsu while the other 10 will spar with me. Keep doing these until you hear differently from me. Move out, Naruto yelled, following the suggestions of Kurama. Right, they all said in unison before moving to do their assigned jobs. He decided to spar with 2 clones first, just so he doesn't get overwhelmed. But, when he saw that he defeated them easily, he asked the rest to come at him all at once. This went on for a while until Kurama told Naruto that it was getting late. Naruto then created a clone with the orders to let everyone dispel 2 at a time every 2 minutes so his brain doesn't get overloaded with information. He then went to sleep, eager to start another day of training. 4 months later, Naruto followed the training regimen for the next couple of months, working himself into the ground every day until nightfall, where he would go to sleep and get up the next day ready to do it all over again. He woke up this morning ready for today's training but was interrupted before he could form his clones. Actually, Kit, we will be doing something different today. Kurama spoke to his container. What are we going to do? He asked. First you will have to go to your Hokage and ask him if there is anywhere within the village with a strong enough privacy seal on it. He will know what it is for. Kurama explained. What are we going to be doing that requires a lot of privacy? Naruto asked curiously. I will tell you when we get there. Kurama said with little room to argue. Fine, Naruto said with a sigh as he started packing up. 10 minutes later, Naruto was currently standing in the Hokage's office in front of the old man himself. Sarutobi had a big smile on his face as he looked at his surrogate grandson, who had grown quite a bit now that he was off of his all-ramen diet. So how are you, ma, boy? Sarutobi asked. I'm doing great, but Kurama wants to know if there is a place in the village with a big privacy seal on it. He said you would know what he wants to do with it. Naruto said with a smile. Oh, yes, I do understand. But is he sure it's safe? Sarutobi asked with suspicion in his voice. Naruto just stood there with a far-away look in his eyes until he spoke again. Yay, he says he trusts me enough with it. Whatever it is, Naruto said, relaying what Kurama told him. Okay, and yes, I do know of a place that would meet your requirements. How about I tell you about it over some ramen? Sarutobi asked, trying to get away from all this damned paperwork. Sure, I'd like that, Naruto said with a big smile as Kurama sighed in annoyance. And just when I thought I'd broken him of his addiction, Kurama thought with a sigh. Later at Ichiraku's ramen. Hey old man, 10 bowls of miso pork ramen. Naruto shouted into the ramen stand. Naruto, is that you? A rough man's voice came from behind the stand. He turned around to see his favorite customer. Yep, and I am starving for some of your delicious ramen, he said with his fox-like grin. Coming right up, and these are on the house, for the return of our best customer, Chuki said with a big smile on his face. What's with all the yelling? A girly voice came from the door that connects the stand and the Ichiraku household. Ayame Ichiraku walked into the stand with a yawn. She was still in her pajamas, which consisted of a dark pink button-up shirt and dark pink pants. Her hair was messy on one side of her face, indicating that she just woke up. "Hey Ayame, look who's back," Chuki said with a smile as Ayame looked over to the blonde-haired kid who looked really familiar for some reason. "Hey Ayame, long time no see, right?" Naruto said with a big smile. Ayame's eyes got wide at that. "Naruto, is that you?" she asked, surprised. Seeing his nod, she gasped. "I barely recognize you. You've gotten buffer and got a better wardrobe, I see," she said, trying miserably to hide a blush at seeing his lean arms. "Hee, yeah, I've been training with my new sensei," he said, trying to cover up his slip-up. "Oh, okay. Is that why you haven't been in a while?" she asked in slight disappointment. Naruto smiled while scratching the back of his head sheepishly. "Yeah, he's been training me into the ground." "Well, I'm glad you're back. Ayame here kept complaining about how you never come in anymore," Chuki said with a smile. "What? No, I didn't," Ayame said with a major blush adorning her face. "Hee. Ah, you didn't miss me, Ayame?" Naruto asked in fake depression. "No, I did miss you," Ayame blurted out before she realized what she said. "I missed you too, Ayame," Naruto admitted. Ayame blushed at that before Naruto spoke again. "I also like your new outfit," he said with a grin. Ayame raised her eyebrow curiously before looking down at herself. Her eyes widened at seeing that she was still in her pajamas. Her face turned the shade of a tomato before she turned and ran back into her house with a squeal. The three people left in the stand just stood there laughing and eating. Sarutobi told Naruto of a place near the wall that he could take him to after their meal. Naruto agreed before continuing to stuff his face full of ramen. Ayame came back in her work clothes and straight hair with an embarrassed blush on her face. Naruto also couldn't help but notice she had some lip gloss and perfume on. But he brushed it off that it was just a girl thing. They got finished eating and went to leave the ramen stand, but not before Naruto promised to come back more often. They then left as Naruto waved goodbye to the Ichiraku family and also sent a teasing wink to Ayame. She blushed and smiled and just waved goodbye. "Shall we go, Naruto-kun?" Sarutobi asked. "Yeah, I want to find out what I'm supposed to be doing today," Naruto said with a smile as they walked towards the east side of the wall. Naruto could be seen walking around the forest with an amused Hokage leading him in what seemed like a never-ending trail through a never-ending forest. Naruto was dragging his feet and occasionally sighing from boredom. "How much longer, Hokage Gigi?" Naruto whined. "A little longer, Naruto-kun," Sarutobi said with a smile, seeing as that was the 7th time Naruto had asked that same question. "That's what you said half an hour ago," Naruto pressed, slightly irritated. "Now look at that, we're here," Sarutobi said with a sly smirk. "Whoa," was all Naruto could say. In front of him in the middle of a giant field big enough to hold the Kyuubi, was a giant glass dome. It was bigger than the entirety of the Forest of Death. Inside he could see a lush forest teeming with wildlife and plenty of trees. Naruto looked at Sarutobi with a confused look. "Is this my new training area?" Naruto asked, getting a little giddy. "Yes, this will suffice for any training method the Kyuubi will put you through. It has the best privacy seals all around the dome, made by the Yondaime Hokage himself. Oh, and don't worry about the glass, you won't be able to break it, so go wild," Sarutobi said with a knowing grin. "Thank you, Gigi. But I have a question," Naruto said while furrowing his brows. "Oh, and what would that be? If all that's glass, where is the door?" Naruto asked, to which Sarutobi promptly sweat dropped. 2 hours later, after they had shunshined into the dome, Sarutobi then told Naruto and Kurama that whatever they had planned, this was the perfect place for it. He showed Naruto around until they found a decent-sized field for training, where Sarutobi left them with a parting gift. A scroll on how to do the Shunshin to be able to get out of the dome anytime he wanted. But, before he left he turned to Naruto. This dome will regulate how much chakra output is going on inside it. Naruto guessed he was talking specifically to Kurama. If it senses that there is too much output, it will alert me immediately. So don't try anything funny, he said in a deathly serious tone. I'll keep him in check, Hokage Gigi. Don't worry, Naruto said with his foxy grin and a thumbs up. Sarutobi smiled at this. Okay, don't strain yourself too hard, Naruto-kun. And with that he left. Okay Kurama, now what? Naruto asked his tenant. Get into a meditative position in the middle of that field. Okidoki, Naruto said happily as he walked over to the middle of the specified field. When he got there he immediately plopped onto the ground unceremoniously and got into a meditative position. Now, I'm going to pump some of my chakra into you. It may hurt a little, but I want you to get used to my power. That's what we will be training with over the next few years, along with what we have been doing, until you get into the academy. Okay, Kurama, whenever you're ready, he said, silently prepping himself for what was to come. In an instant, he felt a foreign chakra enter his own reserves. Almost immediately he felt his features begin to change. His teeth sharpened into fangs, his nails grew into claws, his hair grew wild, and his whisker marks started to bolden. But, the most definite change appeared when he opened his eyes. His cerulean blue eyes turned blood red with slits for pupils. He stood up, already feeling the changes that happened to his body. He felt stronger and more perceptive. He felt great, if not for a little burning in his stomach, but otherwise great. Wow, Kurama, so this is your power. It was more of a statement than a question. I feel like I can take on anyone. Fool, that's not even a fraction of my true power. If not for this seal I could give you more, but this will do for now until you get strong enough to hand more of it. I know that, but it still feels great. Except for this little burning in my stomach, Naruto said, unconsciously putting a hand on where it burned. That is to be expected. My chakra is too malevolent for your young body. If I gave you too much, it might have burned your skin off. Kurama said nonchalantly. Well, that's good to know, after we already tried it. Naruto screamed at his tenant. Hey, you're fine, aren't you? I say that's a win in my book. Kurama defended. Yeah, whatever. As Naruto said those words he took off running into the woods at a breakneck pace. He would mostly jump around on the tree branches, but it turned out he still couldn't control his new powers when he broke a pretty thick branch when he kicked off of it. After he had his little joyride, he ran back to the field to start his training. Now, since you already have my chakra, you are going to practice with that first. The taijutsu I've been teaching you was originally for using with my chakra since it deals with sharp and quick movements. Oh, okay. I always thought I wasn't using it to its fullest level, he replied while getting into his first stance, which consisted of Naruto getting on all fours with his arms crossing each other. Naruto spent the rest of the day getting used to his, hopefully, friend's chakra. They would continue this every day, including it into his regular training regimen. 1 year later, October 7th. Hiruzen Sarutobi was currently sitting in his office waiting patiently for the Anbu to get back with the people he requested for them to bring to him. Flashback. 1 hour ago. Sarutobi couldn't focus on his paperwork, not that he really wanted to anyway. He was worried about the event that was coming up in the next couple of days. Suddenly, an idea popped into his head. He snapped his fingers and 4 Anbu appeared in front of his desk. I want you 4 to go find these people and bring them into my office as soon as possible, and tell them it's urgent, he said, quickly writing a couple names down onto a sheet of paper. When he was done writing, he handed the sheet to the Neko-masked Anbu. The Anbu looked at each other skeptically before vanishing into puffs of smoke and leaves. Sitting down with a smile, Sarutobi started working on his paperwork again, determined to get it all done in 3 days' time. Flashback end. Reviewing what he is going to say, Sarutobi didn't notice someone knocking on the door until the second knock. "Come in," he said, slightly giddy. In walked a group of 12 people, including Tenten, her dad, Kakashi Hatake, Asuma Sarutobi, Kurenai Yuhi, Shikaku Nara, Inoichi Yamanaka, Choza Akamichi, Enko Mitarashi, Sum Inazuka, Tsuki Ichiraku and his daughter, Ayame Ichiraku. "What's the emergency, Hokage-sama?" Kurenai said, trying to find a reason for such an odd assortment of people to be gathered. "There is no emergency, Kurenai. What would make you think that?" Sarutobi asked in confusion. Everyone face-faulted at that. "Because you sent Anbu and said it was urgent," Kakashi offered, not looking up from his orange book. "Well, how else was I supposed to get you all here quickly?" Sarutobi asked in amusement. "Touché," they all said in unison. "So, why did you call us all here?" Tenten spoke up, slightly intimidated by all of the high-ranking shinobi around her. "Well, it has something to do with Naruto-kun," Sarutobi said seriously, surprising the people in the room with his sudden seriousness. "What? Has something happened to him?" Anko asked, worried, getting surprised looks from the others. Flashback. 2 years ago in the Forest of Death. Anko was in the middle of the Forest of Death, using the secluded area as a resting place. After walking for a bit, she found a boy with sun-kissed blonde hair lying on the ground with cuts and bruises all over his body. She calmly walked over to him and poked him with her foot. "Hey, you alive, kid?" she asked, slightly curious why he was in here. He suddenly opened his eyes and jumped up to face the strange girl. She took a step back in surprise. He had deep, ocean blue eyes, 3 whisker marks on each cheek, and slightly shredded clothes on. "Yeah, I'm fine. Who are you, by the way?" he said while brushing dust off of his clothes. "I'm Enko Mitarashi. Who are you?" she asked. "I'm Naruto Uzumaki. Pleasure to meet you," he said with a smile as he held out his hand to her. She gained a surprised look on her face. No one in the village had treated her so nicely save for a select few. She smiled and shook his hand. "So, what are you doing in a place like this?" she asks, motioning to the forest they were in. "Training," he said simply. They then started talking to each other and relaxing the rest of the day until Anko had to leave. When she left, she felt that she had made a new friend. Flashback end. Ever since then she had treated Naruto like a little brother and Naruto treated her as a bigger sister. They had traded life stories and found out they had a lot in common. That just made their bond stronger. "I can assure you, nothing has happened to him. I called this meeting for one thing and one thing only," he said seriously. Everyone leaned in to hear what he had to say that was so important. "You are all invited to attend Naruto's 10th birthday party," he said with a grin. They all face-faulted, expecting some dangerous, important mission that required so many people. "But, I need ideas for the party, so I need you guys' help. Treat this as an A-rank mission," he said sternly. Everyone then started brainstorming ideas for Naruto's birthday party, wanting to make it extra special. Somewhere off in the woods, a certain blonde-haired boy was sneezing almost non-stop for the last couple of minutes. "I must be getting sick from over-exhaustion," he said before he promptly sneezed once more, this one knocking him to the ground on his butt. It was 6 p.m. on October 10th, and if one was looking, they would see a young boy with sun-kissed blonde hair, 3 whisker marks on each cheek, and a very muscular yet lean build, walking down the street towards the Hokage Tower. He wore black shinobi pants with plenty of pockets, a black, zip-up, sleeveless vest, and a black scarf around his neck. He had his hands wrapped up in bandages and wore black and dark orange combat boots. In addition, he had a black and red sword sheath on his back with a red hilt and a black hand guard. This boy was none other than Naruto Uzumaki. He tried to avoid the festival that was going on a couple blocks from him because it usually wouldn't end up well for him. But it looked like fate had frowned on him this day. As he was walking, he heard yells coming from behind him. Curious, he looked over his shoulder and saw a few dozen civilians and some Chunin-level shinobi all yelling and pointing at him. He looked ahead uncaringly and kept walking at a normal pace. This seemed to anger the mob to where they all started running at him until he turned a corner and they lost sight of him. They quickly ran and turned the corner to see Naruto in the middle of the street staring at them. If you plan to attack me, I will have no choice but to defend myself to any extent. Think carefully before you choose your next action. Naruto spoke in a calm manner, making eye contact with the leader of the mob. Oh yay! Look who finally grew some balls. The leader spoke to the rest of the mob. Just because you got yourself a new look and a shitty sword doesn't mean you scare me, demon. Oh, this old thing. He asks in mock curiosity as he pulls his sword hilt out, making the mob tense slightly, only to show no blade attached to the hilt and a slit where the blade should be. Idiot doesn't even have a blade. It's just for intimidation. The leader sneers as he walks towards Naruto. Naruto, in return, just holds the hilt up to chest level. The leader just smirks, his pace never slowing. Soon he was right in front of the newly 10-year-old and mockingly put his body against the hilt and raised his fist. See, you're nothing but a weak little duh. He was cut off. The suddenly blood spurted out of his back, opposite where the hilt is. I'm sorry. What were you saying? Naruto asks with a smirk at the others' stunned faces. How? One civilian asked. What happened? Another one asks. How did he get cut? There's no blade. One ninja said. Anyone else? Naruto asks with a tilt of his head while he lets the body fall to the ground lifeless. He used his demon powers to kill that guy. One brave civilian near the back called out. We need to tell the Hokage. Then go tell him. I'm on my way there myself. Do you want me to give him a message? He asks politely while putting his hilt back in the sheath. No, we will tell him ourselves. He replied. Okay, bye. Those were his last words before he poofed out of existence, showing himself to be a shadow clone. Everyone's eyes went wide at this and the civilians started racing to get to the Hokage before the demon brat while the ninja shunshin to get there faster. When the ninja got there they raced into the Hokage's office to see the Hokage sitting behind his desk talking to aforementioned demon brat. Naruto looked to be giving a report to the Hokage when they barged in. May I help you? Hiruzen asked, irritation clearly in his voice. That demon brat just killed Terako Shizuan for no reason. The shinobi who entered first yelled. Naruto, he said, emphasizing his name, has been here for the last half hour. He used a shadow clone to kill him. And then he used a sword without a blade and killed Terako with his demon powers. He yelled. He then realized his mistake a second too late as he looked down to see a sword through his chest. He fell forward to show an Anbu behind him with a Neko cat mask holding the hilt of the now bloodied blade. Now that the idiot is dead, would you please tell me what happened, Naruto? Hiruzen asked his surrogate grandson. Sure, he said before telling him exactly how it happened. And then my clone pushed wind chakra through the hilt to form a blade of wind that killed him instantly. I see, you all may leave since only Terako attacked him. But I do warn you that if any of you try this again, all of you will be Ibiki and Enko's newest torture test subjects. He said in a deathly tone, making everyone widen their eyes and immediately leave. Now, Naruto, first of all, happy birthday. He said with a smile while picking up a small scroll from out of his drawer and handed it to his surrogate grandson. Thanks Gigi. What is it? He asked while unrolling the scroll to see a low-rank storage seal. Push chakra into it and find out. He said smiling. Naruto did just that and out popped a ring. It was an all-black titanium ring with 4 Konoha leaf symbols on the cardinal directions of the ring. The leaf symbols are actually seals. They store chakra that can be pushed back into you during emergencies. It will also help your reserves grow, although I'm guessing that's not a problem for you. Haha. Yay. But thank you a lot Gigi, this means a lot to me. He said with a genuine smile gracing his face. It was my pleasure Naruto-kun. I just want you to meet me training ground 7 at noon tomorrow. He said with a knowing smile. What for? Naruto asked confused. It's a surprise. So don't ask again and I expect you to be on time tomorrow, I'm serious. Hiruzen told him, knowing he gets caught up in his training. I promise I'll be on time tomorrow, Gigi. And I never go back on my word, Datbeo. Believe it. Haha. I know you don't Naruto-kun. And I want to hear more about that hilt you have tomorrow as well. The elderly Sarutobi said with a smile. You're dismissed. Of course Gigi. See ya tomorrow. He said with a smile as he left his surrogate grandfather's office. Time skip. The next day, 11:50 a.m. Naruto was currently walking through the streets of the village towards training ground 7. He didn't want to be late so he left 11 minutes early. While he was walking he thought back on how he had gotten his special sword hilt. Flashback. 6 months. Naruto was in his custom training ground working with his swords as part of his training regimen. He was facing several clones who were wielding swords of their own. After a few seconds there was only one left. They both charged each other, swords drawn. The next moment they were on the opposite sides of where they started. After a few seconds the clone poofed out of existence. The real Naruto stood up straight and was about to put his swords into his sheath when the blades broke off. Well, that's just great. Now I have to order more swords from Tenten's store. Naruto whined as he sealed away the broken swords so he can properly dispose of them. Naruto, that won't be necessary. Kurama spoke in his mind. What do you mean? He thinks to his partner. Well, I had foreseen that those puny swords would break eventually. So I had forged a sword for you with my chakra. Well, how would that help me? You're in a seal, he reasons with his tenant. Let my chakra flow through your hand. I will do the rest. Okay. So he does just that and he notices that Kurama's chakra cloak was flowing through his hand and was forming a hilt. After a few minutes, the chakra receded and in Naruto's hand was a red sword hilt with a black hand guard and a slitted hole where the blade should be. How's this supposed to help me? There's no blade on this sword. Naruto exclaims when he notices it is missing the blade. Just channel your wind chakra through it, he says, a little irritated. So, he channels his wind chakra through the hilt and he feels his chakra form a blade out of his wind chakra. The blade was invisible to even his eyes but he could tell it was there. Whoa, how did it do that? He asks, amazed. The hilt has no blade because it makes a blade out of whatever chakra you put into it. So any of your chakra natures would create a blade out of that element. He says proudly while puffing out his chest. That's awesome. Thanks Kurama. He exclaims happily that his friend would make him such a great gift. Yay, yay, just think of it as an extra early birthday present, he says with a smirk. Flashback end. Naruto smiled at the memory when he entered training ground 7 with 1 minute to spare, only to see no one there. He walked to the center of the field when he felt his senses dampen. He couldn't sense anything past the tree line anymore. Kurama, what happened to my senses? He asked his tenant only to get silence as his reply. Suddenly he realized that he was in a genjutsu. He quickly dispelled it and found himself in the middle of the same clearing but with tables around the field and a big banner that said, Happy 10th birthday Naruto. He looked around in shock when he heard people yelling the same words as on the banner behind him. There he saw Hiruzen, Konohamaru, and Asuma Sarutobi, Ayame and Tsuki Ichiraku, Tenten and her dad, Kakashi, Kurenai, Anko, Iruka, the Uchiha, Nara, Akamaiki, Hyuga, not sure if that's the right spelling, and Yamanaka clan heads and their children. They were all smiling and waving at him while singing happy birthday to him. At that moment, Naruto felt incredibly happy. He started to cry tears of joy for his first ever birthday party. He ran up to Hiruzen and hugged him with all of his might. Thank you, thank you, thank you, he cried into Hiruzen's Hokage robes. It was my pleasure Naruto-kun. And everyone here wanted to wish you a happy birthday. The aged Hokage said with a smile. Naruto turned to the rest of the guests and bowed deeply. Thank you all for coming. It certainly means a lot to me. We're happy to be here Naruto-san. Asuma said with a smile. Well, let's get this party started. Naruto yelled with a giant smile on his face. Everyone laughed and went about mingling and catching up with friends who haven't talked in a while. After about an hour and a half of talking and meeting the clan heads and their kids, Naruto's attention was brought to the Hokage, who was standing up and flicking his finger on the glass cup to get everyone's attention. Naruto-kun will now open his birthday gifts. Naruto, if you would do the honor, he said while motioning to the table with gifts on it with his head. When he was done opening all of the gifts, he had ended up with a new ramen recipe named after him at Ichiraku's, a scroll on a fire jutsu from the Uchihas, a book on anatomy from the Hyuga family, a book on fuinjutsu for novices from Jiraiya of the Sannin, a wind-style jutsu from Asuma, a chakra control exercise created by Kurenai herself, some high-grade sealing ink, scrolls, and brush from the Ina Shika Cho formation users, a water-style jutsu from Kakashi, a chakra steel wakizashi from Tenten and her dad, a drawing from Konohamaru, a book on poisons from Anko, and a book on Konoha history from Iruka. It was the best birthday Naruto has ever had. He thanked them all for coming and for the gifts, and after a couple more minutes it was just Naruto and Hiruzen in the field. They both cleaned up and Hiruzen sealed all of Naruto's gifts into a scroll for carrying purposes and then walked to Naruto's apartment together. Thank you so much for today, Gigi. Naruto thanked his grandfather for the 100th time today. It's no problem Naruto-kun, it was fun. And remember, you'll be starting the academy next week, so make sure to get there on time and don't be a pest to your sensei. Hiruzen warned. I know, don't worry so much Gigi. I will be a good student, Naruto said with a smile. They hugged again and Naruto went inside and changed into his pajamas and laid down into his bed and went to sleep with a content smile on his face. Tuesday, 5 days after birthday party, Naruto was walking down the street with a smile on his face. He had shadow clones at his apartment reading all of the books he got for his birthday. He was currently reading the book on fuinjutsu he got from Jiraiya. He was genuinely interested in the subject, so he wanted to read it himself. He was just walking down the street after going to see the Hokage, but only to find out that he just went into a meeting with the council. So after hearing this news from the secretary, he started walking around, nothing to do but read and walk until the Hokage was done. He had wanted to talk to the Hokage about what happened last night, but it looks like he will just have to wait. While he was waiting, he couldn't help but think back to yesterday. Flashback. Yesterday at 8:05 p.m., Naruto was sitting at home reading his fuinjutsu book when he suddenly felt restless. He got up from his bed and went to his window to jump into the cool night air. He started running on the rooftops to try and burn up the energy he had so he could get back to reading. He was running through the Shinobi clan district when he smelt the metallic coppery scent of blood. He started dashing towards where the smell was coming from when he got to the Uchiha clan compound. The smell was getting stronger the closer he got to the gate until finally he opened the gate to find blood and bodies everywhere. His eyes grew wide as he ran through, checking any and all bodies for life. When he reached the main building, where he knew Makoto, Fugaku, Itachi, and Sasuke lived, he had only found one person who was still alive only to die after he told Naruto that Itachi did all of this. He opened the paper doors of the main building to find Itachi standing over a dead Makoto and Fugaku with an unconscious Sasuke by the other door. "What have you done, Itachi?" Naruto asks in a shocked tone, effectively getting the traitor's attention. "Tsukuyomi," Itachi said quickly before Naruto could bring any unwanted attention. "Inside Tsukuyomi, what? Where?" Naruto asked no one when he found himself in a weird world with a red moon. "Over here, Naruto-kun," Itachi spoke from behind Naruto, who jumped in surprise. "Why did you do this? Why did you kill all of your family all of a sudden?" Naruto spoke with anger evident in his voice. "I am on a SS rank mission from the Hokage himself. See, my family was planning to rebel against Konohagakure for being outcasted. I was ordered to take the rebellious members of my family out, which was pretty much everyone excluding Sasuke and my mother," he explained with a somber tone. "But I saw that Makoto-san was dead on the floor along with Fugaku-san," Naruto said with suspicion laced in his voice. "She jumped in front of my blade when I went to cut down my father. The blade went through them both, killing them within seconds," Itachi spoke while looking down. "Sasuke came running in and I told him that I was testing my abilities and that I want him to hate me and get stronger. I'm sorry, but that was just stupid. You should have told him the truth so he won't go looking for power elsewhere." Naruto spoke in a sage-like manner. Yay. Well, I want you to befriend him and show him that power's not everything without people to protect." A faint smile crept its way onto Itachi's face. "Help him grow strong and in return I will give you something special the next time we meet. No, it's not the Sharingan. I will do my best to befriend him and protect him. We'll be like brothers," he said with his patented fox-like grin. "Thank you, Naruto-kun. And remember, never tell anyone about this information, not even Sasuke." He spoke with utmost seriousness. "Don't worry, I know. I'm so sorry you had to go through this, Itachi. I will find a way to bring you back to the village scene as a hero," Naruto said with determinations blazing in his eyes. "Thank you and goodbye, Naruto-kun. I won't be seeing you for a long while. I figured, and I would make sure to do something about the bodies that have the Sharingan in them. Someone might want to take them for their own. I couldn't help myself XD. That's a good idea. I know of someone who would take that power for their own. I will dispose of them properly." And with that everything faded away. Without a word, Naruto started leaping away from the compound towards his house. He sighed. He truly felt sorry for Itachi and even more for Sasuke. They both had their worlds taken away from them and one of them didn't even know the real reason why. He made a vow to become Sasuke's best friend if not brother in all but blood. Later that day, Danzo Shimura was on his way to the Uchiha clan compound to discreetly steal all of the Sharingan eyes so that he could be all-powerful. When he reached the compound and saw medic nins taking the dead bodies of the Uchiha citizens and police force, he noticed something that angered him to no end. None of the deceased had their eyes. The precious Sharingan was taken from all of the bodies, including the people who had the potential to gain the Sharingan but never did. Danzo fell to his knees and held his fists towards the sky and yelled with all of his might, "No!" Flashback end. Naruto sighed before looking up to see where he was. He noticed that while he was walking on autopilot, he had walked straight into a back alley. Shrugging, he turned around to walk out of the dead-end alley only to see a mob of people and shinobi blocking his path. "Yes, how can I help you find people today?" He spoke in an emotionless tone. You can die slowly and painfully for killing Terako, who did nothing but try and be a hero. Spoke on of the ninja, Hai Chunin at most. He tried to kill me, I was simply acting in defense. And as I told you before, I'm sick of being abused for no reason. Naruto said with a glare while putting his book in his shuriken pouch on his back waist, not unlike a certain silver-haired jonin. No reason. He tried to kill a demon in human disguise. And you killed him because you truly are a demon. He yelled at the young boy before turning quiet and cold at the end with a malevolent smirk. I don't know of this demon you speak of, but if anyone here is a demon, it's the people who try and kill a child for no other reason than because you hold a grudge on what I hold. Naruto spoke while sending a steely glare at the one who spoke. The mob was shocked that the demon in front of them knew that he held the Kyuubi no Kitsune. We are not attacking a child, we are attacking a demon who killed many of our loved ones for no other reason than because you felt like it. He clenched his fists. Enough talk. Get him. With that command the Chunin ran forward to attack Naruto with kunai or bare fists. Naruto went to defend only to be kicked in the side by another Chunin who came from his right. The blonde Jinchuriki was sent tumbling and rolling until he hit a wall. He looked up to assess his chances. There were 4 Chunin and a whole mob of civilians, his chances didn't look good. If it was only one Chunin he might have stood a chance, but he was completely outnumbered. Over the next 10 minutes, Naruto was beaten, stabbed, kicked, and thrown by the idiots who thought themselves heroes. When they looked to be done and was about to steal anything valuable on his person, 3 Anbu jumped down and started to kill or subdue anyone within the area. After they were done and sent the traitors to Ibiki and Enko, they looked to see Naruto barely getting up. They picked him up and shunshin to the Hokage's office, where said Hokage was sitting behind his desk looking furious. I assume the traitors have been subdued. Sarutobi spoke to the one with an Inu dog mask on. Said Anbu stepped forward and went to one knee. Yes sir. All were either apprehended or killed on the spot. He spoke coolly. Good. Take Naruto-kun here to the hospital and one of you stay with him to protect him against anyone. No one is to go into his room unless they are a doctor, nurse, or me. Dismissed. Hi. With that said, they shunshin to the hospital with Inu staying behind to guard Naruto. Meanwhile, the elderly Sarutobi walked towards the council room where he would be talking to the shinobi clan heads and the civilian council. He was furious that his advisors and the civilian council had ordered that meeting for no other reason than to keep him from protecting Naruto. He walked in to see both sides of the council already here as well as his 2 advisors. He sat down at the head of the table with a calm exterior that only the shinobi could see the fire burning in his eyes. Too bad that the civilians couldn't. What is the meaning of this Hiruzen? Screeched a certain pink-haired member. Silence. I am the Hokage of this village and I will be treated with respect, and you will call me the proper title and stop screaming before I revoke your position as a council member. I understood. Hiruzen yelled at the entire council with rage in his voice. Hi, Hokage-sama, yelled everyone in fright. Good. Now, it has come to my attention that one of our residents was attacked earlier today at the same time of our council meeting. I have had enough of you civilians acting like you can control me. This is not a democracy, this is a dictatorship with me as the dictator. You will listen to what I say or you will be stripped of your position on this council. Am I understood? The Hokage ranted while the civilians started sweating. Hi, Hokage-sama, they yelled again. Now, I am making changes to how this council is run. He turned to the civilian side of the table. Leave. Now. It was so quiet after he said those words that you could hear a pen drop from the Hokage mountain. What? They all screamed in unison. I said, leave. I will choose someone tomorrow who will represent the entire civilian council by bringing in your ideas and presenting them to the council. Until then, leave. He explained with a cold glare. You can't do that, screeched the only pinkett in the room. With a quick signal with his hand, an Anbu comes down and puts a kunai at her throat, surprising everyone at the Hokage's cruelty. If anyone questions my power again, I will not stop him, he says while smirking at their faces. Now, if you don't want to die, I would suggest you start walking. The door is right there. When the last of the civilian council was gone and the Anbu hidden again, Hiruzen spoke to the clan heads. Now, we can deal with any business or problems you might have, he says with a smile, making everyone sweat drop at his happy attitude, but couldn't help but crack a smile themselves. Monday, 1 week after Uchiha massacre. Naruto was currently walking to the Konoha Ninja Academy where he would start his training to become a fully fledged ninja and be able to go on missions. To say he was excited was to say he kind of liked ramen. In simple terms, it was a huge understatement. He had a plan to show everyone what he could do, and the look on everyone's face when he unleashed his true power. When he got to the academy and found his classroom, he walked in to see a bunch of kids his age sitting down talking amongst themselves. A quick conversation with Kurama told him that they were the clan heirs, with some random civilian-born kids here and there. There was a kid with a gray jacket with tufts of fur around the armholes and hood. He had brown pants with blue ninja sandals and a white puppy sitting on his brown head of hair. There was a shy girl with dark blue hair sitting in the back middle row with a thick, beige jacket with fur lining the bottom. She had blue shorts that reached just past the knees and matching sandals. Then there was a lazy-looking black-haired kid that had his hair tied back resembling a pineapple, with a gray vest with green linings over a fishnet shirt that was tucked into his brown pants that go just past his knees and blue sandals. Next to him was a chubby boy with light brown spiky hair and red spirals in each cheek. He wore a green shirt over a beige shirt with the Akamaiki clan symbol on the front. In addition, he wore light black shorts with bandages going from his knees to his blue ninja sandals. In the back left, sitting by the wall, was a brown-haired boy with black, thin-rimmed sunglasses and a light gray jacket with a high collar to hide his lower face. He also wore brown pants and blue ninja sandals. Just imagine the rest of them in their genin clothes, just without their hitai-ates. They were Kiba Inuzuka, Hinata Hyuga, Shikamaru Nara, Choji Akamaiki, Shino Aburame, Ino Yamanaka, Sakura Haruno, and Sasuke Uchiha. The latter of which was sitting in the first row with the seat right next to the window, with Sakura and Ino fighting each other about who gets to sit next to the Uchiha heir. Naruto walked up to Sasuke and bowed to him. I am truly sorry about what happened to you. I know what it feels like to be lonely, so if you ever need anyone to talk to or to train with, you can come to me. I will be your friend no matter if you like it or not, he said as he straightened from his bow and gave Sasuke his patented grin. Meanwhile, Sasuke just looked at this kid, who looked no older than himself, walk up and declare to be his friend and to offer his time if he ever needed it. The last loyal Uchiha couldn't help but smirk as Naruto sat down next to him and looked ready to talk. The name's Naruto Uzumaki, he said while sticking his hand out. Sasuke Uchiha, he said with an arrogant smirk as he took the blonde's hand. Nice to meet you. Then his grin turned cold. And you better wipe that arrogant smirk off of your face before I beat it off of you. And I would hate to do that to my new friend. Sasuke's smirk flew right off of his face when he heard that. For some reason, he didn't doubt Naruto's words for a second. But he couldn't help but feel a little happiness well up inside him at the prospect of having a new friend. While this was happening, the other students were just staring at the duo in awe. They had never seen anyone just demand to be friends with anyone and the person accepting, especially someone like Sasuke. Sakura got out of her shock first and immediately reacted. Get away from Sasuke-kun, you baka! Sakura screeched at the blonde. Sasuke, do you want me to leave? Naruto asked the duck-haired boy. No, he yelled uncharacteristically at the thought of sitting by the pair fangirls. Everyone, save for Naruto, moved their heads back in shock at the normally brooding boy to yell like that. Well then, he looked at Sakura. I'm not moving. Find another seat and stop being a fangirl. This is a ninja academy, start acting like a ninja. He spoke wisely while emphasizing ninja. Sakura just stood stock still. Just then Iruka walked in to get the class ready for the first day of the next 3 years of their life. -3 years later, we'll flashback later. So, Sasuke, do you think we will pass the genin exams? Naruto asked his long-term friend in mock curiosity. Do you really have to ask Naruto? Of course we'll pass. The only challenge will be guaranteeing we get on the same team. And getting a good third teammate. Says Sasuke, who was in his normal brooding pose. Yay, who do you think would be good addition to our team dynamic? Sasuke takes a good look around the classroom discreetly to gauge the other people in the room's prowess. We will most likely be put on a team with either Sakura, they both shiver, or Hinata. Seeing as they're tied for Kunoichi of the year. Hinata is really only lacking in taijutsu because of her caring nature, so her written tests are up to par. Kami, I hope it's Hinata. We don't need a fangirl on our team to keep bugging you about a date. Naruto joked. Don't make me think about it, was all he could say before Iruka came into the classroom. For once in the 3 years the entire class was quiet when he came in. Iruka smiled at how his class has grown over the years. Now, today will be the genin exam. You will all take a written exam followed by a little spar and a shuriken and kunai throwing exam and finishing with the ninjutsu portion. Are there any questions before we start the test? He asked politely. Naruto raised his hand and when called on spoke formally. Will we be able to recommend teammates? You can suggest them, but that doesn't mean that you will get that person unless you prove it is the best setup. He explained. Anyone else? Getting no reply, he started handing out papers. You will all be given half an hour to complete this portion. There are 10 questions and it will all be over the stuff we've covered in class, so don't worry. When he finished passing out papers, he walked to the front of the class and put 30 on the chalkboard to represent the time they had. Ready, begin. And with that the students started their tests. -30 minutes later. Stop. The written part of the exam is now over. Please turn in your tests on your way out to the sparring arena. After everyone had turned in their tests and gathered around the arena, Iruka spoke again. I will call out the names of the 2 who will be fighting. The rules are there will be no ninjutsu, no crippling or killing blows, and no weapons. The first match will be against Kiba Inuzuka versus Ken Tasuki. Random civilian. Let's just say that the civilian boy got demolished. After a couple of matches where some civilian kids were beaten and some others were destroyed, it was finally Naruto's turn. Next match will be Naruto Uzumaki versus Sasuke Uchiha. And remember, you don't have to win to pass. If you pass or not depends on your performance during this spar. As Naruto and Sasuke got into positions and smiled at each other. Iruka-sensei, even if I win, will this bring my grade up any? No, not with your grades. You will still have your current grade, sorry. Iruka said sadly. Good, Naruto said with a smirk. Surprising Iruka and the rest of the class save for Sasuke. Okay. Anyway, begin. And with that, they ran at each other at medium genin speeds and met each other in the middle with a flurry of punches and kicks. After a few moments of fighting in the middle they broke off and went to their starting points, not winded in the slightest. Iruka-sensei, can we please use low-rank ninjutsu? Asked Sasuke. I guess it would be alright, though nothing lethal. He said with uncertainty. Thanks. With that they started going through hand seals simultaneously. When they finished the sequence of hand seals they called out their jutsu respectively. Kaden. Gukaku no Jutsu. Suiten. Teppadama. They both blew balls of their chosen element the size of themselves at their opponent. The jutsu met in the middle of the arena. The result was a burst of steam to shroud the arena and hid Naruto and Sasuke from the rest of the class. The only thing that they could hear was the occasional sounds of flesh hitting flesh. When the steam finally dispersed, the class gasped at the sight before them. Naruto and Sasuke were standing the opposite of each other, panting slightly with bruises and some cuts on the exposed skin. "I think the fight's over, sensei." Naruto spoke with a grin, his eyes never leaving Sasuke's form. "He's right, it's over." Sasuke agreed. "Okay, I guess you both pass," Iruka said, shocked. Naruto and Sasuke quietly walked over to a tree and laid down to rest. Both of their wound healing before the class eyes. Unknown to everyone was that Kurama was healing Naruto's wounds while Sasuke was using a technique he learned to heal his wounds with some of his chakra. "Okay then, the next match will be next exam. Now, you will all be throwing 5 kunai and 5 shuriken at the training dummies to simulate kill shots. That means head, heart, neck, or any major arteries. First up is Sasuke Uchiha." Sasuke walked up and took out 5 shuriken and threw them all at the same time. Then proceeded to do the same with kunai. He got a perfect score and went back over to where Naruto was standing. "Show off," Naruto joked. "HMPH. Sasuke humphed in pride. Next is Naruto Uzumaki. Naruto then proceeded to get an average score, didn't want to risk getting his grade up any more than it would be after the last exam, although everyone in class knew he was just hiding his skills. Final exam, I'm skipping the rest since who really cares. Now, I will call you all into a room one at a time to take the ninjutsu exam. The first will be Shikamaru Nara. Skipping ahead, Sasuke Uchiha. A few minutes later Sasuke walked back into the classroom wearing a blue hitai on his forehead. "Your turn, Naruto," he said with a smirk. "Yay, yay," was his reply before he walked to the secluded classroom to take his ninjutsu exam. "Hello Naruto-kun, please perform the henge, kawarimi, and bunshin jutsu in that order." "Okay, sensei." With that he used the henge jutsu to turn himself into an exact copy of the Uchiha prince and then replaced himself with a ceiling tile. The teachers looked up to see Sasuke sticking to the ceiling with chakra before replacing himself with the same tile and turning back into Naruto. "Now the bunshin, if you would." "Alright, Kage bunshin no jutsu." And 20 Narutos appeared around the room. "Sorry, but due to my massive reserves and moderate chakra control, this is the least I can make," Naruto explained with a sheepish smile. "It's fine, Naruto-kun," Iruka said with a smile. He then handed Naruto his hitai and told him to tell Shino that it was his turn. Naruto quickly fastened the medal onto his black scarf around his neck on his way back to the classroom. He walked in and told Shino he was next and sat back down next to Sasuke with a smile. "After final exam. Now, everyone who passed will meet me here tomorrow for team placements. Congratulations everyone, you're dismissed." He finished with a smile. At that Naruto jumped up into the air with his fist raised high in the air yelling, "Yay!" While Sasuke had a genuine smile gracing his face. "Okay, everybody, quiet down," Iruka said as he walked into class before looking up to see everyone sitting still and quiet. He smiled as he sees how much his students have matured from the first day. "Now, congratulations everyone on making Genin. After today you will be an official ninja of Konoha, that makes you technically an adult. Remember to train hard, watch each other's backs and above all stay safe." He paused to let his words sink in. "I will now call teams. The teams will be made of 3 Genins and 1 Jonin Sensei. Team 1 to 6. Randoms. Team 7. Naruto Uzumaki, Sasuke Uchiha." Said boys smiled at this and fist bumped. And Hinata Hyuga. And your Jonin sensei will be Kakashi Hatake. Team 8. Kiba Inuzuka, Shino Aburame, and Sai with Kurenai Yuhi. Team 9 is in rotation from last year. Team 10. Ino Yamanaka, Choji Akamaiki, and Shikamaru Nara with Asuma Sarutobi. Please get with your teams now. Everyone looked around and got up and sat with their new teammates. After everyone was seated, he spoke again. I am proud to call all of you my students. Please wait here for your Jonin sensei to arrive, it shouldn't take that long. He then proceeded to leave with one last smile to his now former students. Well, Sasuke, it's just as you said, same team. Naruto said with a big smile. What did you expect from a genius like me? And what about you, Hinata-san? Do you like the way the teams are? He asked politely to the only girl on their team. I think it's okay. I'm happy to be on your team, Sasuke-san, Naruto-san. She said shyly. Same goes for you, Hinata-chan. I think we'll be the best team in Konoha. Naruto said with a big grin. Yeah, don't worry, you'll be fine with us watching your back. Sasuke said with a smirk. But that doesn't mean we'll always be there, so you have to train hard. And we can even help with your training. Naruto said seriously. I know, Naruto-kun. I will train hard and be a valuable member of this team. She spoke confidently. That's the spirit. While they were talking, a little loud I might add, everyone could see and hear their little conversation and were smiling a little. They would all train hard and would not get left behind by their former classmates. After about half an hour, all of the teams were taken by their sensei except Team 7. They were getting to know each other to pass the time when their sensei finally came in, 2 hours late. Team 7, I guess that would be you three, he said before realizing the room was empty save for his team. It's about time, Kakashi-san. We've only been waiting for 2 hours. Naruto said with an annoyed expression. Sorry about that. A black cat crossed my path and I had to go the long way, but then I had to help an old lady cross the street. He said seriously. Everyone's sweat dropped at the apparent lazy Jonin that was their new sensei. Anyway, meet me on the roof in 1 minute, he said before he shunshined to the roof. The three new genins looked at each other before shrugging and walking to the stairs to the roof. They arrived on the roof in exactly 1 minute to find Kakashi sitting on the ledge reading an orange book. Now, would you please state your name, likes, dislikes, any hobbies, and your goals for the future? Would you please give us an example, Kakashi-sensei? Asked Hinata curiously. I guess. My name's Kakashi Hatake. I like my book and training. I dislike traitors and cowards. My hobbies are reading and training. And I don't really have any dreams. He said half. I guess it works, thought the three new genin. You go first, Blondie. Naruto smirked at his new nickname. Sure thing, Cyclops. My name's Naruto Uzumaki. I like my friends and training. I dislike perverts, rapists, and cowards. My hobbies are training, eating ramen, and hanging out with my friends. My dream is to become a master swordsman and to travel the elemental nations like the legendary Sannin. He spoke proudly. I would have thought he wanted to become Hokage, thought the Cyclops. Now you, duck hair. Sasuke scowled at his nickname. My name is Sasuke Uchiha. I like my friends, Dango, and training. I dislike traitors, rapists, and a certain someone. My hobbies are hanging out and training with Naruto, and reading. My dream is to revive my clan and be the strongest Uchiha there ever was, along with travel with Naruto. He said with a smile. He had given up on getting revenge on Itachi but couldn't get rid of all of his hatred for his brother. Good, he doesn't hold that much of a grudge. And finally you, pale eyes. My name is Hinata Hyuga. I like flowers, training, and my sister Hanabi. I don't like rapists, the Hyuga elders, and Kumo. My hobbies include training, gardening, and reading. My dreams are to undo the segregation of my clan and become a strong clan head. She said proudly. So I got a determined blonde, a loyal Uchiha, and a Hyuga bent on unity. Oh, what fun, he thought with a smile. Meet me tomorrow at 7 a.m. at Training Ground 7. Oh, and don't eat breakfast or you'll throw it up within the hour. With that the Cyclops took his leave. Whatever you do, eat breakfast. It would be better to throw it up than to not have any energy to do anything, especially when we don't know what we're going to be doing. Said Sasuke wisely. Yeah, like I would miss a chance to eat. Naruto said with a big smile. With that, each member of Team 7 went their separate ways to prepare for whatever their new sensei would throw at them the next day. The next day, Naruto, Sasuke, and Hinata all arrived at 7 a.m. sharp to find an empty training field. They weren't really surprised by this as result of yesterday. So they all just talked about their strengths and weaknesses and some battle strategies for any situation they could come up with, including fighting the Jonin to surviving in the Forest of Death for 24 hours. After exactly 3 hours, the Jonin arrived to see his 3 genin talking to each other. Hey everybody, how's it going? Kakashi asked with an eye smile. It's going good, Kakashi-sensei. Just discussing battle strategies. What's the reason for us being here? Naruto said nonchalantly. Well, I figured you'd want to be present to your own genin test. What do you mean, sensei? Hinata asked, confused. Well, in the academy, you take the genin exam which weeds out all of the students who don't have what it takes to be genin. This test is to see if you meet the Jonin's expectations, and if you do, then you become official genin of Konoha. Understand? Kakashi explained. Hi, sensei. They spoke in unison. Now, the test is simple, he said as he got out 2 bells. Get these bells from me and you will pass. 1 bell for each student. He was about to continue when Hinata cut him off. Sensei, why there are only 2 bells? Well, Hinata, the 2 who get the bells will advance to become genin while the one who doesn't get a bell will be sent back to the academy. On the other hand, there is a chance that all of you will be sent back if no one gets a bell. Now, any more questions? Kakashi asked with an eye smile. The 3 former academy students looked at each other and smirked mischievously but said nothing. In that case, Hajime, begin. With that declaration, the 3 pre-teens poofed out of existence, shocking the Jonin. Shadow clones. But how? Thought the Cyclops. It has been half an hour and Naruto, Sasuke, and Hinata haven't made a single move since the shadow clones disappeared. Since then, Kakashi opened his orange book and read but never let his guard down. He was about to go out and look for them when he saw movement out of the corner of his eye and moved his head out of the way of the oncoming kunai. After that, Sasuke came out of the forest and ran straight at the Jonin. Kakashi, half expecting this, engaged him in a taijutsu battle, never taking his eyes off of his book. While Sasuke was better than he expected and he almost had to put down his book, he was no match for an experienced Jonin. When Kakashi was done playing around, he roundhouse kicked Sasuke in the head, only to be met with a poof of smoke when it connected. Another shadow clone, he thought. Next came Hinata as she engaged Kakashi in a taijutsu match, similar to the Sasuke clone. Assuming it to be another clone, he went for a straight punch to the face and overreached when she dodged, Byakugan active. She closed off the chakra points in his arm before he pulled his arm back. He then jumped back to a safe distance to analyze the situation. He didn't get very far until Naruto jumped at him from the side with a roundhouse kick aimed at his head. He only barely dodged before grabbing the extended leg and throwing him to the ground where he poofed away into smoke. Soon after, another Naruto came in and went for a leg sweep, to which Kakashi jumped over, only to have yet another Naruto come at him and tackle him out of the air. When they hit the ground, Naruto pinned the stunned Jonin long enough for Sasuke to come in and grab the bells away from the Jonin Cyclops. "How about that, Kakashi-sensei?" Naruto asked with a big grin on his face as he got off of Kakashi. "Very good, you three, especially with the shadow clones. How were you three able to make so many?" Kakashi asked curiously. "Well, actually, Naruto made them and had them use a henge to transform into us to fool you," Hinata explained. "That was incredibly smart, you three," he said with an eye smile. "Well, it was all Hinata's doing. She came up with the plan, we just implemented it," Sasuke said while sending Hinata a small smile, to which she just blushed a little. "Well, anyway, you all did amazing. Now all you have to do is to find out who gets sent back to the academy," he said without losing his smile. "Actually, there's no need, Kakashi-sensei," Naruto said after getting a nod from his two friends. "If anyone is getting sent back, we all go back. We're not going to vote someone off just because you didn't bring enough bells," he said with a smirk. Kakashi looked at the other two kids and smiled. "Well, in that case, you all pass," he exclaimed at the end, getting confused looks. "What do you mean? I thought at least one of us would have to go back," Hinata asked. "Well, the actual reason for this test was to test how you work as a team. Especially how you two would act with a new addition to the team," the Cyclops said to Naruto and Sasuke at the end. "So, what happens now?" Naruto asks. "Now you three go and celebrate on making genin, and tomorrow, we will go on our first mission," Kakashi said with an eye smile. With that, the three new genin went off to celebrate being made official ninja of their village while Kakashi went to the Hokage's office to announce his new team with the rest of the jonin. "Now, I will require the results of your genin test in order from Team 1 up," Hiruzen said with authority. "Team 1. Failed. Team 2. Failed. Team 3. Failed miserably. Team 4. Close but still failed. Team 5. Hopeless bunch. Failed. Team 6. They did good but would need a different team matchup to succeed in any mission. Failed. Team 7. Passed." At that, everyone looked at Kakashi in shock. He had never passed a single team. "Please explain, Kakashi," Sarutobi asked curiously. "Well, Hinata came up with a brilliant plan to use Naruto's shadow clones to henge into herself and Sasuke as a distraction while Hinata came at me to engage me in taijutsu. After she closed my tenketsu in my right arm, I jumped away to get some distance. Just barely after I landed, I was engaged in taijutsu by some of Naruto's clones until I had to jump over Naruto's leg sweep where the real Naruto tackled me out of the air and pinned me down when I was still dazed. That must have been the signal because immediately after that, Sasuke came and took the bells from me. They then proceeded to tell me that if one of them went back to the academy, all of them would go," Kakashi explained with an eye smile. "Interesting. Next team please," Hiruzen said with a smile. "Team 8. Passed," Kurenai said proudly. "Team 10. Passed," Asuma said after taking a puff of his cigarette. "Excellent. I expect to see every team that passed to see me in my office tomorrow for their first mission." Dismissed. "Hi, Hokage-sama." Every shinobi present then shunshined out of the office. Hiruzen then looked out of his office window with a smile. "Congratulations, Naruto-kun." And with that he turned back towards his worst enemy. Paperwork. The next day. "Hello Team 7. I hope you had a good night's sleep and are ready for a day full of missions." Hiruzen Sarutobi, Sandaime Hokage of Konoha, was talking with Team 7, which included Naruto Uzumaki, Sasuke Uchiha, and Hinata Hyuga with Kakashi Hatake as their Jonin sensei. "Hi, Hokage-sama," Team 7 said in unison. "The first mission on the list is a capture mission. The feudal lord's wife's cat ran away and we need you to catch it and bring it home safely and without injury." Kakashi visually paled at that. The cat's name is Tora and is known to be very slippery and dangerous. She has also been known to blind a few people who weren't careful. So, have fun, the Sandame said with a sinister smirk. Dismissed. 2 hours later. I don't have visual on the target. Does anyone else? Hinata spoke into his radio. No, we should move on to another area before dusk, said Sasuke from his position in the tree. Naruto, do you have visual on Tora? Said Hinata before they heard laughing. Naruto, what's going on? With another bout of laughing, the rest of Team 7 went to find Naruto and see what is wrong with him. They had walked approximately 20 meters before they came across Naruto on the ground with their target on his stomach. They looked to be playing with each other before they noticed the rest of Team 7 looking at them in disbelief. What? Naruto asked. What do you mean what? Isn't that Tora, the cat that has plagued everyone who has taken this mission? Asked Kakashi in shock. I think so, she does match the description. So does this mean the mission's over? Naruto asks excitedly. Yeah, I guess we can go back and get our pay and start another mission since this one didn't take that long. Kakashi said, still trying to get over his shock. Half an hour later. So, you're saying that you not only caught Tora before 3 hours, setting the new record, but also befriended the bee's cat? Sarutobi said in amazement. Yeah, more or less, said Naruto with said cat laying on his head. Well, that's just, whatever he was going to say was cut off as a fat lady came crashing through the door with her arms out running towards Naruto, or more specifically, Tora. Oh, my baby Tora. I know you didn't mean to run away. You probably just got lost on your walk. The feudal lord's wife, who will now be referred to as Dorothy, yelled as she was within arm's reach of Tora, who was now in Naruto's arms. She got closer and closer until she reached out to grab the cat and grabbed her and tried to take her from Naruto, but Tora was having none of that. She was clutching onto Naruto's arm with an iron grip until she was ripped off and crushed against Dorothy's chest in a hug. Hey, you can't hold her like that, Naruto yelled before grabbing Tora out of Dorothy's arms. As he did this, Hiruzen and Kakashi were looking on with wide eyes. What are you talking about, boy? It is my cat. I have every right to hug my kitty. She all but yelled at the blonde-haired boy who just took her cat. Well, it's no wonder Tora-chan keeps running away from you. You crush her to near death. You have to hold her gently and stroke her fur, like this, Naruto said before demonstrating what she had to do. I see. Oh, I'm so sorry, Tora-chan. I didn't know I was holding you wrong. Will you ever forgive me? She said while opening her arms hesitantly for Tora to come to her arms. The cat in question then ran into her owner's arms before being held the right way for once. It then ran back to Naruto before licking his whiskers affectionately. Afterwards, it walked over to Sasuke, who was talking to Hinata about something, and rubbed her head on his leg, effectively getting the boy's attention. Sasuke, feeling something rub against his leg, looked down to find Tora the cat looking up at him expectantly. He lowered himself to look directly into Tora's eyes before she licked his cheek. Sasuke recoiled in shock before looking away in embarrassment with a pink tint to his cheeks. Hinata couldn't help but giggle a little and have one thought go through her mind: kawaii. After that scene, Dorothy left with Tora laid gently in her arms. She had promised to let Tora come by every now and then to play with Naruto. The elderly Sarutobi had given Team 7 a raise on the mission pay for not only being the first to befriend Tora and set the new record for catching her, correct Dorothy on how to hold her, but also rid the future shinobi from taking that mission. They had gotten another mission to walk the Inuzuka dogs, where they learned that it was not only cats that Naruto was good with. He had walked them all by himself and even played with all of them afterward. He had even personally asked if he could do it on a regular basis from then on. For the next couple of weeks, they continued to do random D-rank mission, with the occasional thank you from Shunin, Jonin, and even some Anbu for getting rid of the menace that was Tora the cat. They had just gotten to the Hokage's office, back from painting some random civilian's fence, when Naruto suddenly yelled, "I can't take it anymore, old man. I think we deserve at least a C rank by now." "Ha! Fork it over, Kakashi." Hiruzen yelled triumphantly. Kakashi sighed and handed over a pouch full of Ryo. "What was that about?" Sasuke asked curiously. "Well, me and Kakashi had a little wager on how long it would take for you to ask for a higher ranking mission. To be honest, you guys have been ready for about a week and a half now." Hiruzen explained, the smirk never leaving his face. "Anyway, if you really want a C rank mission, I have just the one. Tazuna-san, you can come in now." And with that, a man who looked to be in his early 50s walked in with a bottle of sake. "These are supposed to be the ninja protecting me. They look." It was at that moment that he actually looked at his protection. They actually looked capable of protecting him. When he heard that rookies were going to be protecting him, his first thought was that he was going to die before he got halfway to Wave Country. But these kids looked pretty decent, especially the one with blonde hair. "Capable," he finally said with a small smile. "Thank you, Tazuna-san. Now you four will be escorting Tazuna here back to Wave Country and protecting him from any bandits that try to harm him." "Any questions?" Hiruzen asked with a smile. Getting no answer, they were dismissed to go prepare for a 3-week mission. They were told to meet at the North Gate in an hour to depart. Naruto, who finished early due to storing his stuff in seals, went to help Sasuke pack. It was a 10-minute journey, but when he finally got there, Naruto found Sasuke packing his stuff with the help of Hinata. Naruto quickly hid behind the door and peered through the crack. "Just don't know what I did to make my father dislike me so much. He constantly berates me whether on my katas or my posture or just manner of speaking. He always finds a flaw in everything I do." Hinata said heatedly. "I know how you feel. I was always compared to my brother Itachi. He always did everything right, and making Anbu by 13 didn't help any. Father always looked at me to try and surpass him. Father only ever looked toward Itachi with love in his eyes, while I got nothing but disappointment," Sasuke said sadly. Hinata looked at him sadly before hugging him. Sasuke was shocked at that. He wasn't used to affectionate behavior directed at him. He could do nothing but hug her back and smile softly. Naruto could only smile as he walked to the North Gate. He was silently rooting for those two the entire way there. Halfway there though, he couldn't help but think about what their kids would look like and if there would be a new bloodline in the next decade or so. Oh, he was so gonna tease the crap out of them later. 1 hour later, North Gate. "Ah, we're all here. Perfect. Are you all ready for your first C rank mission?" Kakashi said with a smile. I smile. "Heck yeah, sensei. I was born ready," Naruto said with a smirk. "I know you were, Naruto. Now, lead the way, Tazuna-san." And with that, Team 7 was off on their first of many C rank mission. Totally unaware of the mess of trouble they had gotten themselves into. "Ha, you probably thought I was gonna end it here, didn't you? I would never do cliffhangers, wink, wink." 1 hour later, Naruto was getting bored walking at civilian speed for the past hour. He was built to run fast, not walk slow. But he knew he couldn't just run ahead of everyone else and leave the client behind. He was about to complain about going so slow when he saw a puddle on the side of the path they were walking on. He looked at Kakashi for confirmation before the look on his sensei's face told him not to draw attention to him noticing it. He discreetly signaled his teammates to the puddle before they walked past it. As soon as they passed the puddle, 2 people jumped out and wrapped the chain that was connected to the gauntlets on each of their hands around Kakashi. They pulled with all of their strength and ripped Kakashi into 2 halves. Immediately afterwards, they ran towards the 3 genin. Naruto ran ahead to meet one of them in taijutsu before jumping back, effectively getting his attention. Now that they were standing still, Naruto could clearly make out the attacker's appearance. This man in front of him was a Kurigakure shinobi if what his Hitai-8, with a single horn in the middle, signified as true. He wore a gas mask that covered the lower half of his face and a black cloak that was ripped at the bottom. He had on brown sandals and a metal claw gauntlet on his right hand. He also had long hair that went down to his shoulders. As opposed to him, his partner, who was fighting Sasuke, had his gauntlet on his left hand. He had somewhat spiky hair and a Kurigakure Hitai-8 with 2 horns. He wore a gas mask similar to his partner's and had on a short-sleeved, camo one-piece with a tan over shirt and a cloth wrapped around his waist which held his shuriken pouch. In addition, he wore black shinobi, open-toed boots. This was Gozu. Returning his attention to his opponent, they stared each other down for a few seconds before they dashed towards each other. They met in the middle with a flurry of punches, kicks, and jabs. After a couple of seconds, they jumped back and started running through hand seals for their respective jutsu. And this was Maizu. These two together were known as the Demon Brothers of the Mist. Naruto finished first and called out his jutsu. Futen. Daitapa. Immediately afterwards, Gozu finished his hand seals. Suiten. Mizorapa. The two jutsu collided in the middle and cancelled each other out. But before Gozu could react, Naruto appeared before him with his fist cocked back. Naruto delivered his right hook and effectively knocked his assailant out. He then looked over to see Sasuke finishing Maizu off with a roundhouse kick to the side of the head. They then tied the two up and interrogated them to find out that they were after Tazuna. Said bridge builder then told them of the hardships back home. So, I wouldn't blame you if you wanted to go back and leave me to my own. Tazuna finished before looking at his feet in shame. Don't even think about it, Tazuna-san. We will continue the mission, right guys? Naruto asked his team with a smile. Yeah, I don't have anything better to do. And I refuse to let my first mission outside of the village be a complete waste. Sasuke said with a smirk. Yeah, I'm with you, 100%. Hinata said with a smile. Well, since you guys are staying, I guess I just can't leave you here. Lead the way, Tazuna-san. Kakashi said with an eye smile. Naruto and the rest of Team 7 were currently walking down the path towards Wave Country at a leisurely pace. It has been a full day since the Demon Brothers had attacked and they had fully recovered from the only thing they had lost, energy, and very little at that. Naruto was currently talking with Kakashi about any potential threats to the mission when suddenly Kurama spoke to him in his mind. Naruto, there is a pretty high chakra source behind the bush on your left, forward about 5 feet. Kurama said worriedly. Got it. Thanks, Kurama. Naruto thought to his longtime friend. As soon as they had passed the bush, Naruto threw the kunai he had in his hand out at the bush. He then heard a thud before going over to check it. When he parted the bushes, all he could see was his kunai, right in between the ears of a pure white rabbit. Naruto picked up his kunai and then proceeded to take the rabbit over to his team to inspect the suspicious rabbit. He knew there was something wrong about it, but he just couldn't pinpoint what it was. Why is its fur coat white? It's the middle of summer. Hinata's voice cut through his thoughts like a hot knife through butter. His eyes widened after hearing that. It must have been raised away from the sunlight. But those animals are only used for substitution techniques. It was then that Naruto heard a grunt, almost as if someone was pulling something heavy back in an attempt to throw it. Wink, wink. Naruto's head whipped up so fast it looked like it might keep going and sail away from his body. He quickly thought to his oldest friend in his head, Kurama, I need your chakra sent to strengthen my right arm. I would hate to have it ripped off. Coming right up, Kurama said lazily. Naruto's arm suddenly gained a dark red hue just in time to see a giant cleaver sword flying through the air at his team. He dashed in front of his team and held out his right hand and caught the handle as it flew past him. He was pulled back a few inches before coming to a stop with a new sword in his hand. Everything was silent until Naruto dropped the sword at his feet as Kurama's chakra receded back into the seal. Well, that was cool. I probably looked like a total badass just then, Naruto said with a smirk. Naruto, pay attention. Obviously, someone just threw that at us, Kakashi told his student with a sigh. That's true, Naruto replies before looking towards the tree line. You can come out now, Zabuza Momochi, Naruto says, suddenly turning serious. Ah, this one shows promise. I probably should have brought Haku after all, a voice says as he walks through the tree line to show a shirtless man with black hair, bandages covering the lower half of his face, and a Kurigakure headband put to the side with a scratch through it, showing that he was a missing nin. He had black and white camo arm and leg warmers with gray, striped pants. I was wondering if I could get my sword back. I doubt I would be any challenge without it, he said with a knowing smirk. Everyone here knew that he would be more of a challenge even without the sword. I dunno, can you take it from me? Naruto asks with his trickster smirk. I'm sure I can manage, boy. Zabuza then formed one hand seal before mist started creeping up all around them. Careful Naruto, he is a master of the silent killing technique, Kakashi said, not wanting to switch out with Naruto at this minute and possibly give Zabuza an opening. I know Kakashi-sensei. I'll be careful, and if I need help, I will tell you, Naruto replied with a confident grin. This will be the ultimate test of how far I've come as a swordsman. He would have said more, but he was suddenly cut off by a kunai making him dodge. Thanks for my sword back, brat, Zabuza said as he retrieved his sword. Well, you can't expect me to test my swordsmanship fighting someone without a sword, Naruto replied, already having pinpointed where the missing nin was. 8 points. Larynx, spine, lungs, liver, jugular, subclavian artery, kidneys, heart. The voice came from out of the mist. Which shall I go for first? The voice sounded slightly amused now. Ooh, can you go for the larynx? Naruto asks loudly and cheerfully. Everyone could hear the distinct sound of a face fault and then the whistling of shuriken flying through the air. Whoa, what was that for? Naruto yelled. Shut up, kid. Just let me kill you without you blabbing your mouth, Zabuza yelled. Fine, no brows, he said before there was the sound of surprise from Zabuza. Where's my sword? Zabuza yelled out as his sword just turned into another Naruto. Naruto was currently laughing his off. He had replaced Zabuza's sword, Kubikiribocho, with a shadow clone when Zabuza had started the hidden mist technique and had it use a henge to look like his sword. He currently had Kubikiribocho strapped to his back and a grin taped to his face. Oh, about that, I have it, Naruto said nonchalantly. A second later he received the memories from his clone. Said clone had poofed out of his disguise and immediately kicked Zabuza in the face. They had a little scuffle before Zabuza managed to land a good hit on it. Oh, I'm gonna kill you extra good when I get a hold of you, Zabuza growled. I'd like to see you try, Naruto said as he appeared in front of Zabuza mid-swing with Kubikiribocho. Zabuza dodged just in time to escape with his head intact. His torso, however, got a slash from his right shoulder to his left hip. Gah! Zabuza screamed in pain, only to disperse into water. You really thought you could defeat me, Genin? Zabuza said from behind Naruto, who in reply, swung around with Kubikiribocho and cut the now identified water clone in two. Then all was silent. Kakashi lifted up his headband showing his implanted Sharingan. It would not allow him to see through the chakra-laced mist, but it would allow him to react faster to the attacks he could see. Back with Naruto. Said genin was currently chasing the ex-Kiri nin while swinging Kubikiribocho back and forth at Zabuza with a giant grin plastered on his face. After a few minutes of whatever you call that, the two ninjas stood a few dozen feet away from each other. Is this really all the demon of the bloody mist can do? Naruto taunted with a grin. Watch it, brat. Just because you have my sword doesn't mean I can't still kill you, Zabuza was saying before having to dodge as his sword flew straight at him, clipping his already short hair. The sword came to a stop as it became wedged into the tree directly behind him, a mere inch from his head. And I don't need that sword to kill a false demon, Naruto said with a confident grin. I don't know whether you're incredibly brave, or extremely stupid, Zabuza said, chuckling as he got his sword out of the tree, which, to his surprise, took a little more effort than he thought it would. When you figure it out, can you tell me? Naruto asks. Zabuza gains a confused expression before discarding it for a serious one. In one swift movement, Naruto unsheathes his simple wakizashi. His wakizashi was a simple black handle with a black blade and black sheath. You're gonna need more than that toothpick to even stand a chance against Kubikiribocho. Zabuza laughed. Oh, I'm not gonna need any more than this wakizashi and my own abilities. Taunts Naruto. As that's so, well then, enough talk. Zabuza yells before dashing straight at Naruto who, in response, dashed right at the missing nin. They met in the middle with a clash of steel. They continued to disappear, only to reappear moments later in another clash. This continued on for another minute or two before Naruto surprised Zabuza by dodging the blade instead on blocking and kicked said missing nin in the chest, surprising him yet again at the strength in this one genin. Zabuza was then launched into the forest where, immediately, Naruto followed. In the meantime, the rest of Team 7 were relaxing beside Tazuna who looked on in awe as the genin not only kept up with the jonin, but was kicking his. Kakashi then turned to the rest of Team 7 to start up conversation. So, what are you guys wanting to learn on our stay here? I was thinking about trying to master a few fire jutsu and maybe some chakra control exercises. Sasuke explained. I wanted to work on a couple of water jutsu and also chakra control like Sasuke-kun said. Hinata said with thoughtful expression. Good, you know the importance of chakra control and not just flailing flashy jutsu everywhere once you've learned it. We will do some chakra control exercises once we get to Tazuna's who. Before Kakashi could finish, Zabuza was sent flying through the tree line towards the water's shore. He looked to be panting and having cuts all over his body, especially on his arms. A moment later Naruto came through the foliage and was about to run at Zabuza before Kakashi spoke. Naruto, let me finish this. I don't want you to have your first kill yet. Kakashi said with a small, sincere eye smile. Okay, have your fun, Kakashi-sensei. Naruto replies with a knowing smile. Oh, I will, Kakashi said with a sadistic smile. You're lucky Zabuza, you're the first high-level shinobi that I have fought since I started getting back into my Anbu shape. So, thank you for being my testing dummy. And then they were off. Kakashi engaged Zabuza in a taijutsu fight for a few moments before Zabuza pulled out Kubikiribocho and forced Kakashi to dodge or block and counter with a kunai reinforced with chakra. AN pretty much goes like canon except Kakashi is not tired at all while Zabuza is. After Kakashi used the Suiden Daibakufu no Jutsu Great Waterfall technique before Zabuza could, Zabuza was launched through the forest until he came to a stop as he hit a particularly sturdy tree. Can you see the future with those eyes? Zabuza asks fearfully for once in his life. Yes, and your future is death, says Kakashi as he threw a kunai at the missing nin's head. As it was about to kill the ex-Kiri nin, Naruto appeared and snatched the kunai out of the air. Sorry Kakashi, but I need to ask him something, Naruto said seriously, leaving no room for debate. Zabuza Momochi, before you are put to death, who is Haku? I heard you say their name before. Naruto asks with utmost seriousness. Just some girl I raised to be a tool for my use and my use alone. She was injured during her last mission protecting me, so she is of no use to me anymore. She is being sold to the highest bidder at Gato's mansion in a few days. Why? Zabuza says, trying to rile up the blonde in front of him. Unfortunately for him, it worked. So you mean to tell me that you raised her, not out of the goodness of your heart, but to make her into a tool. Then when she protects you at the risk of her life, you discard her like trash after she gets injured by protecting your ungrateful. Naruto asks with his head slightly tilted down so that his hair shadows his eyes. Yep, she was pretty too. Too bad she would never let me have my way with her, what with her seeing me as some sort of father figure. Ha, what rubbish. I hope she gets sold to a fat, old guy that keeps her locked in his basement. Ha ha ha. Zabuza's laughing was cut off as he suddenly felt an immense amount of killing intent directed directly at him. He looks up at Kakashi, expecting him to be source of this horrible aura, only to see him walking slowly backwards while looking slightly fearful of the blonde in front of him. Speaking of the blonde, Zabuza's gaze eventually found the source of the incredible amount of ki. Naruto was now looking directly at the missing nin with crimson red eyes with a vulpine slit splitting his eye, acting as his pupil. Naruto's nails elongated into claws and his whisker marks darkened. Where's Gato's mansion? Speak quickly before I kill you. Naruto spoke in a demonic voice as he drew on Kurama's chakra. It's about 20 miles and north of the unfinished BR bridge. Zabuza said shakily as he was honestly scared shitless of the boy in front of him. You are nothing but a coward and nothing more than trash. Because of your past actions, especially to those close to you, I, Uzumaki Naruto, will grant you a slow and painful death. Naruto spoke, his respect for the man's sword prowess extinguishing in an instant. Kakashi quickly put Zabuza in a strong genjutsu, making him think he was undergoing Naruto's torture. Before Naruto could lunge for the kill, Kakashi threw a kunai into Zabuza's heart. Calm down, Naruto. I don't want you becoming a heartless killer just because you lost yourself to rage. While yes, he deserves it, you're not like that. Kakashi spoke sagely, trying to calm his student. You're right, Kakashi-sensei. We have to save that Haku person, right? Naruto asked Kakashi hopefully. Yes, we will save her. But first, we need to escort Tazuna back to his home and start training. Now that we've defeated Zabuza, Gato might just send someone more powerful to attack us. You're right, as usual. Well, let's get back to the team and Tazuna. Naruto said with his smile back on his face. 1 second. Kakashi said as he cut Zabuza's head off and put it into a storage scroll that he had on his person. Might as well get the bounty money. Naruto just looked at his sensei with a smirk before grabbing Kubikiribocho and shrugging at Kakashi's smirk. Naruto then dashed into the foliage back to his team, Kakashi following right behind him. Team 7 continued to escort Tazuna back to his house in Wave Country when Sasuke suddenly asked Naruto a question that was on all of their minds. Naruto, what are you gonna do with Zabuza's sword? Oh, I've actually got a plan for that. This plan will actually help Konoha in the future. Naruto says with a grin. What is this plan, Naruto-kun? Hinata asks curiously. Okay, lean in. Naruto says causing them to do so. Even Tazuna was curious. My plan is, they leaned in further. A secret. Everyone's face then met the ground as they were ticked by Naruto. Said trickster was currently laughing his off while running away from a fuming Sasuke. The rest of the group was laughing as they watched the two genin friends interact with each other. Naruto was currently lying in bed thinking about Kurama's proposal. Flashback. Zabuza fight. Naruto had just handed the fight over to Kakashi when a familiar voice resounded through his head. "Hey, I noticed your sensei is constantly expelling chakra out of his left eye." Kurama said, intrigued. "That would probably be his implanted Sharingan. I think he said his old teammate gave it to him before he died." Naruto explained. "That explains it." "That explains what?" "Well, when one implants someone else's DNA into themselves, it requires more chakra than normal to use that person's techniques. This happens because the two strands of DNA are not compatible with each other. Kakashi is using unnecessary chakra just to keep his Sharingan open. Dang, I wish I could do something to help him." Naruto thought glumly. "Well, you might not be able to do anything, but I guess I could help the guy out. I mean, he did protect you when he was still in Anbu." Kurama says smugly. "What do you mean, Kurama? What can you do while in the seal?" "What I can do is alter the eye's DNA to match Kakashi's DNA. You can ask him when you two are alone, but you must tell him that it will be extremely painful, as I will literally be taking DNA out of his eye socket to use as a template for the new DNA." Kurama warned. "Okay, I'll ask him when we get to Tazuna-san's house." "Thank you for this, Kurama." Naruto thinks with a grin before he remembers something he heard Zabuza say. "Hey, I wonder who Haku is." Flashback. End. Just as he was ending his little reminiscing period, he heard a knock at his door. "Come in," Naruto said, just loud enough for the person on the other side of the door, already expecting who it was. "Yo, Naruto, you wanted to see me?" Kakashi asked. "Yay, I have a proposition for you." He paused, making sure he had Kakashi's full attention before continuing. "Kurama is able to fix your little Sharingan eats too much chakra problem. But he warns that it will be extremely painful should you choose to do it." "How will he fix my little problem?" Kakashi asked unbelievingly. "He can use his chakra to rewrite the DNA in your Sharingan eye to make it match yours. This will allow you to be able to turn it off and on again, and for its techniques to be less chakra consuming." Kakashi was slightly taken aback when he heard that completely legit answer. "Okay, I will do it," Kakashi decides after a few moments of thought. "Good, now lay down on your back and uncover your Sharingan while I put up some privacy seals." Naruto instructs as he is already going through hand seals for the privacy seals. He then puts a paralyzing seal on Kakashi's chest so that he doesn't flail around. After a few seconds, Naruto was standing over Kakashi with his hand over the copy ninja's left eye. "Ready?" Naruto asks hesitantly. "Born ready," Kakashi replies confidently. At that reply, Naruto relinquished control over his hand as red chakra started to cover it entirely. Not a second later, Kakashi screamed out in pain, trying with all of his might to thrash around. After a half hour of non-stop screaming, the chakra finally retreated back into the seal. Naruto, seeing that Kakashi is unconscious, summons a seal-less shadow clone to carry his sensei back to his room after deactivating the privacy seals. When Naruto gained memories from his clone, he relaxed into his bed, ready to enter dreamland. Time skip. Next morning, Naruto and the rest of Team 7, minus Kakashi, with the added company of Tazuna and Tsunami, were quietly eating breakfast that Tsunami had graciously provided for them. "It's been almost an hour since we've been up. Don't you think Kakashi-sensei would have gotten up by now?" Hinata asked worriedly. "He had a pretty rough night last night. Let's just let him sleep in today while we start doing warm-ups before the real training starts." Naruto assured his team. "Whatever you say, Naruto." Sasuke spoke, trusting his friend's decisions. Time skip. Dinner. Naruto and his team walked into the house ready for lunch. They looked sweaty and panting but with big grins on their faces. After they had done their warm-ups and saw that Kakashi was still not up, they decided to just head straight into light training. Which, of course, led to a competition between Sasuke and Naruto about who could master their new jutsu the fastest. With Sasuke, he had to completely master the Kaden Hosenka no Jutsu Phoenix Flower technique. This jutsu shot out many balls of fire that spread out to confuse the target before converging onto the target, effectively making them extra crispy. Naruto's jutsu was the futon, a mafusho heavenly wind palm. This technique uses compressed wind chakra in the user's palm before thrusting one's palm towards the target. This releases the compressed wind in a spiral which can be used to either deflect weapons or cut the opponent. While neither was able to completely master it, as that would be impossible, even for a genius that had all of the notes from others who have mastered it. Also because Naruto didn't want to use shadow clones against someone who couldn't use that many. Meanwhile, Hinata was also training. She completed the water walking chakra exercise in the time it took Sasuke and Naruto to start to get the hang of their respective jutsu. After that she started to get to work on a jutsu that she wanted to learn ever since their run-in with Zabuza. While she didn't get as far as Sasuke or Naruto as they had a head start and more chakra, she had made significant progress in learning the Suiten Kurigakur no Jutsu hiding in mist technique. She had seen the technique used by Zabuza and saw that Kakashi's Sharingan couldn't see through it. She curiously activated her Byakugan and found out that this jutsu doesn't block the all-seeing view of the Byakugan. This would help her significantly against an opponent who was faster and stronger than herself, as she would be able to navigate the mist as if it wasn't there. As long as she didn't go up against another Byakugan user, that is. When the three genin walked into the house and saw that Kakashi still wasn't up, they started to get worried. That was all before they felt a huge chakra surge come from upstairs. The three genin dashed up the stairs and ran through the door to Kakashi's room and were met with a confusing sight. Kakashi was currently sitting up in his bed with a furious expression on his face. "Naruto, you forgot to disable the paralysis seal that you put on me. I've been trying to break the seal for hours now, but you put too much chakra into the seal and made it incredibly strong." Naruto then gained a sheepish expression upon the realization that he was the reason for his sensei's absence all day. "Sorry, but I had to make sure you wouldn't accidentally break it when I was fixing your eye," Naruto explained before he got punished. It was then that Sasuke and Hinata realized that Kakashi had his left eye exposed and that it was black, just like his other eye. "Sai, I guess it's fine. You all look like you've been training all day even without my presence," Kakashi conceded before gaining a serious expression. "Tomorrow we will train extensively until a little before it's time for dinner. After dinner we will strategize a way to get into Gato's mansion and out with this Haku person without being seen." At his statement, the three teens donned a serious expression like their sensei. They nodded at his plan before Naruto gained a confused expression. "Shouldn't we try and cause as much destruction as possible while trying to get Haku and anyone else trapped there out?" Naruto asked. "That would be the plan if we had more high-level shinobi that could cause a diversion as we snuck in, maybe placing a few high-level explosive tags on the walls, and get out with the slaves and then blow it up when we get to safety," Kakashi explained. "Well, Naruto-kun could use his shadow clones to create a diversion while I use my Byakugan to scan the building to find the slaves and help us avoid any guards along the way. Sasuke-kun can cast genjutsu on the explosive tags so they won't be noticed before we're ready, and Kakashi-sensei can kill any guards that somehow notice us before he can alert anyone else," Hinata stated with an analytical expression on her face, unknowingly explaining her plan out loud. She looked up to see everyone had a surprised expression on their faces and couldn't help but blush when she realized what she had done. It didn't help that Sasuke was staring at her, just like the rest of them. "Sorry, I was just brainstorming. I didn't mean to say that out loud. That's a great plan, Hinata-chan. I think we just found our team strategist, Kakashi-sensei," Sasuke said with a small, but noticeable, smile on his face. Hinata couldn't help but blush a bit at Sasuke's praise. I think you are right, Sasuke-kun. It looks like we have our plan laid out for us. Get some sleep tonight cause we're going to be training extra hard tomorrow to prepare for this side mission. I'm going to go get some food since I haven't eaten all day. Kakashi says with a slight glare at Naruto, who whistled and looked the other way. Time skip. Tomorrow, Team 7 could be seen training out by a lake. Naruto and Sasuke could be seen trying and failing at the water walking exercise. They simply had too much chakra to control, so it was harder than with Hinata, who had smaller chakra reserves. Hinata, who had completed the exercise, had done it earlier to make it second nature and was currently trying to master the Kurigakure no Jutsu. She had the chakra requirements down and was just trying to expand how far the mist spread. They continued this training until Naruto and Sasuke eventually managed to stand, walk, and run on water. Kakashi then had them perform a jutsu while standing on water as a final test of sorts. They then started trying to master their respective jutsu until it was time to eat dinner and go to bed, but not before going over the plan once more and Kakashi asking if there were any concerns in the plan, which they denied. Time skip. Tomorrow morning, outside of Gaara's mansion. Okay, are you three ready? Kakashi asked his team seriously. Yep, I think we're good. Naruto says, just as seriously, after a look to his team who, in response, just nodded. Okay then, we'll use the strategy we've discussed to neutralize this base of operations. Kakashi explained. With that, Team 7 jumped up to the building's side wall, out of sight from all guards, but not before Naruto created 2 shadow clones with enough chakra to make about a dozen each before dispelling. The clones ran off the other side of the property to create a big enough diversion to draw out most of the guards. After a couple of minutes, Team 7 heard an explosion on the other side of the property and knew that that was their cue. As one, they ran through an open window into a dark hallway. When they didn't hear any movement, they took that as a sign to move on. As they crept through the mansion, with Hinata having them hide at times to avoid men rushing to the commotion outside, and having to stop a couple times to plant an explosive tag here and there, they silently made their way to the basement where Hinata said she saw a huge group of women in chains down there. After they had finally found the jail cells, they started to look for the keys. After a minute or two of searching and coming up with nothing, Naruto chose to use some of Kurama's chakra in his hand to melt the hinges since it emitted no sound other than a small hissing. When they had all of the women gathered, they started to make their way back to the window where they came in. Do we have everyone? Naruto asks the former slaves. Well, we're missing Haku. A small-voiced girl near the back said. What's your name, miss? Naruto asked the female voice. A girl, maybe a year his junior, came to the front of the group to talk with Naruto, face to face. She was a fair-skinned girl with waist-length white hair being covered by a green bandana with a long curved white stripe. She had gray eyes with 3 black concentric rings. She wore a sleeveless kimono over a green top with only one sleeve covering her left arm. Both of her arms were bandaged up to the elbows. She also wore black, slightly ripped Anbu pants with black Anbu sandals. My name is Ryazetsu. Please, we have to save my friend, Haku. She says, slightly tearing up. Don't worry, we'll save Haku. I promise, and I never go back on my word. I'm Naruto, by the way, and this is my team, Sasuke, Hinata, and Kakashi-sensei. Naruto said with a big smile before introducing his team. Thank you so much, Naruto-san. I will never be able to repay you. Ryazetsu said, bowing. There's no need for any of that, we're just doing our part to make the world a better place. Naruto said, smiling his patented smile, making her blush slightly. Kakashi-sensei, How about you take everyone down and out to the rendezvous point while I go and get Haku? I will leave some shadow clones to help bring everyone down. Naruto suggests. I don't like it, but I guess you can handle it. Be back in half an hour or I'm coming back in for you, either stealthily or not. Kakashi warned, slightly worried for his student. Don't worry, I'll be back before you know it. Naruto says before creating a dozen shadow clones and running in the direction where he sensed an ice-cold chakra signature. Don't worry so much, he'll be fine. If anyone can do this quietly and get out in the nick of time, it's Naruto. Sasuke said with a smirk after seeing Ryazetsu look after Naruto with a worried look. Yeah, okay, she said before going with the rest of the group. Time skip. 5 minutes, with Naruto. Naruto had been sneaking around the mansion, trying to get intel on where the bidding lot is supposed to take place. All he found out was the location of the Money Vault archive room. That is where he is now. Naruto had 2 reasons for standing in front of the vault door. 1. He wanted to give the money in the vault back to the people, and 2. If there was a blueprint on this mansion anywhere in this mansion, it had to be here. Naruto then used a supercharged Kaden Gokaku no Jutsu, Great Fireball technique, that melted the door after a minute of continuous bombardment of fire. Naruto then proceeded to seal every speck of gold and every single ryo. He then started looking for the blueprints for this huge house. After another minute of searching, he had finally found it. The layout for every floor in this mansion. With a quick skim of the pages, he found the bidding room on the 2nd floor. That means that he had approximately 20 minutes to get to the bidding room, save the girl, and get out of the mansion and to the rendezvous point before Kakashi came back to get him. A minute later, Naruto came to a stop after using a shunshin to get to the 2nd floor quickly. He looked through a window to see a huge room with a pedestal in the middle and many booths with triple pane glass. In the middle, on the pedestal, was a woman with long black hair and brown eyes. She wore a green kimono with yellow trimmings over a green vertically striped, long-sleeved shirt. She wore a brown sash around her stomach, keeping her kimono closed. Picture it. Search. Q equals Haku and PRMD equals IVSN and source equals LNMS and TBM equals ish and SAW equals X and VED equals OAHUK WIHWN 6 ODM RAHUKCHIK VPCQWQ underscore AUICCGB hashtag TBM equals ish and Q equals FEM plus Haku and IMGRC equals EJVE 4W4XBXHOFM %3A. Her arms were currently being held above her head with chains that most likely had seals on them, preventing any chakra usage. There was an electronic display on the wall that currently had 200 million Ryo written on it in bright yellow letters. This got Naruto's blood boiling. He then used the tree climbing exercise to sneak up the wall and across the ceiling to where the chains were being held. When he was there, he got Haku's attention by shaking the chains slightly and using the universal signal for her to be quiet, sent a wind-laced kunai at the chain right above her hands, effectively cutting the chain and making the kunai land behind her foot, out of sight. Haku kept her hands up to keep up the illusion that she was still held captive while also building up her chakra reserves back to normal. Naruto, landing directly behind Haku, whispered for her to create a bunshin to fool the bidders. Nodding, she did just as he said, and not a second later Naruto grabbed her shoulder and shunshin to the window where he and his team had come in and ushered Haku out first. Once they both reached the ground, Naruto led Haku to the rendezvous point. They got there with 3 minutes to spare, and as soon as they touched ground near the group, Ryazetsu ran up and hugged Haku, who was only a year or 2 older than her and a couple inches taller. After hugging Haku, she turned her affection towards Naruto and immediately hugged him as well while saying, "Thank you so much, Naruto-san, how can I ever repay you?" "It's no problem, Ryu-chan. Just knowing that you're all safe is all the repayment I could ask for," Naruto said sincerely. Ryazetsu blushed slightly at the nickname and the suffix. Kakashi then started the countdown to when he was going to set the explosive tags off. 10, 9, 8, this is where the rest joined in. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. At the 1, everyone cheered that they were finally rid of that hellhole, some, who had been there longer, more than others. They had then made their way back to the town to greet their families and friends. They had made a promise that when they were finally rid of Gato, they would celebrate tenfold. On the way back, however, Haku and Ryazetsu had chosen to stay close to Naruto with slight blushes on their faces, although our favorite blonde hero had no idea why. He had also gotten to know them a little better on the way back and, since they didn't have any family in the town, chose to stay with Naruto and his team and go back to Konoha with them. With that fully loaded day over with, they had all went to sleep with Naruto on the couch because he had given Haku and Ryazetsu his bed, as they didn't want to separate from each other. Naruto and the rest of Team 7, as well as Haku and Ryazetsu, were sitting on the almost finished bridge with Kakashi standing over them. It had been 1 week since their rescue of all of Gato's slaves and the destruction of his mansion. In this time, Tazuna had been working his crew overtime to try and get this bridge done as soon as possible. With the money that Naruto had returned from Gato's vault, the only problem was time. There was also the problem with Haku's injury. Though it was not life-threatening, it certainly put a stopper on her ninja career. She explained that they were fighting another missing nin from Kumogakure that had tried to recreate the Raikage's prized lightning armor and was banished for it, seeing as how he had stolen personal information and publicly berated the Kage for not sharing the jutsu. The Kumo nin had used this bastardized version to blitz Zabuza and get behind him, preparing to stab him through the back with his lightning-enhanced sword. That is, until Haku dashed in front of the attack, taking the sword to the middle of her torso, and saving Zabuza in the process. After her selfless defense, Zabuza had pushed her body to the side before cleaving the Kumo nin in half, killing him instantly. Zabuza then had a medic nin look the girl over, coming to the result that the sword had damaged her lungs and made it nearly impossible for her to exert herself physically. Every time she would try to push herself, she would wheeze and incomparable pain would shoot through her diaphragm. After being told this, Naruto had immediately asked Kurama if they could do something, to which the giant fox merely responded with, "I rewrote the DNA in a man's eye, you really think a bit of lung damage is anything for me?" And so, Haku was up and back in business before too long and has thanked Naruto every day since. So, that brings us to today. Kakashi had asked the two additions to introduce themselves again with the same questions he asked Naruto, Sasuke, and Hinata when they first met him, as well as what their specialties were. Haku, choosing to go first, spoke up with a smile. "My name is Haku. I am a descendant of the Yuki clan, a clan known for their ice release Kekkei Genkei, to which I am proficient at. I like flowers and herbs, training, my friends, and reading. I dislike traitors, rapists, and people who hurt others just for fun. I don't really have any hobbies since all Zabuza cared about was training. My dreams for the future, I'm not sure as of yet. And I specialize in my ice jutsu, speed, and healing." Everyone smiled at her answer before looking to Ryazetsu for her introduction. "My name is Ryazetsu, and I was an Anbu for my home village of Kusagakure before a mission went wrong and I was betrayed by my teammates, who were given money for handing me over to Gato and his thugs. Gato had approached me before to try recruit me for his little band of delinquents and thieves due to my prowess while I was in duty, but I refused. This led to him bribing my squadmates into incapacitating me and handing me over as a slave. My likes are training, developing new jutsu, and hanging out with my friends. I hate traitors, people like Gato, and people who would do anything for money. My hobbies used to be hanging out with my friends and training." As for my dreams for the future, I would have to say have a big family and eventually train my children in the ways of a shinobi. I also specialize in taijutsu, infiltration, and although I don't ever use it, I have a kekkei genkai that allows me to heal and revive others at the expense of my own life force. I am also well versed in fire-style jutsu. As she finished, everyone gave her a nod of respect and a smile, showing that they were grateful that she would share her story. Thank you both for sharing. Now, seeing as how I've been having both of you do minor exercises to see how much you need to work to get back up to snuff, I will be training you all on our way back to the village. In these sessions, we will be working on your base strength and speed, as well as chakra control and stamina. Seeing their nods, Kakashi was about to continue when he heard someone clapping from behind him. Everyone turned to see a short man with a large mane of gray hair spiked to the back, wearing round sunglasses and a suit and tie, walking forwards while clapping, holding his expensive-looking cane in his armpit. Behind him stood a small army of meager-looking thugs that probably couldn't fight anyone one-on-one, but altogether they could easily overpower most shinobi. You stupid fucking idiots. Did you really think that you could just steal my girls, blow up my mansion, and kill my people and get away with it? Gato asked rhetorically as he slammed his cane down. You don't get to just come in here and ruin everything and act like heroes. No, since you ruined my bidding war and cost me millions of ryo, you will all die. And when my army is through with you all, I will destroy this little village and take everything away from them. The midget could only smirk at seeing the workers running off of the bridge, behind the foreign shinobi. Oh, you think they will save you? Think again. If one missing nin couldn't defeat you bunch of heroes, then how about two? With that proclamation, two figures suddenly appeared next to the short man. The tallest of the two was a man with waist-length, green hair, purple eyes, full lips and thick eyebrows. As for his dress, the man wore a dark brown sleeveless vest with a light brown belt that held two swords on each hip. The most notable feature about him, however, was the bandages wrapping around most of his body. The other figure was a young-looking individual with long green hair, yellow eyes, and a scar under his left eye. He wore a sleeveless light gray shirt, long light gray pants, light gray sandals and a red headband. You could also see various needle-type knives along his belt with light blue balls at the pommel. While the first man seemed arrogant and bloodthirsty, the second, who looked to only be a few years older than them, seemed emotionless and dead inside. Like someone who had given up hope long ago. Meet my new muscle, Raiga Kurosuke, former member of the 7 Ninja Swordsmen of the Mist. He can control natural lightning itself with his Kiba blades. The second is Noaki, a typhoon-release kekkei genkai user with untapped power. Just bought him from Kusabi just to get rid of you lot. Now, kill them all. Gato called out in obvious arrogance, causing Raiga to grin excitedly and Noaki to grimace for a split second before schooling his features and advancing. Naruto, we need to. Kakashi was cut off from planning as Raiga rushed him with his sword sparking with electricity. I don't think so. I heard you had a really powerful lightning jutsu. Let's see how you fare. And with that crazed shout, Kakashi was forced back, lest he be pierced or shocked into oblivion. Damn it. Okay, Haku and I will go assist Kakashi. Sasuke, Hinata, and Ryazetsu, you take on Noaki. If you don't think you can win, retreat when it's safe. These guys are way stronger, the demon brothers, so don't pull any punches. Naruto shouted before rushing where Raiga and Kakashi had taken their battle, Haku following behind shortly after. Clenching his teeth at the high amount of static electricity in the air, Naruto set his sights on the crazed lightning user, who had now noticed them and jumped back, lest he be surrounded. Ah, I see we got a little 3v1 going on. How unfair. He laughed before slicing down with one of his blades, sending a stream of lightning towards the newcomers. Dashing out of the way, Naruto quickly sent a minor wind jutsu at the swordsman, to see how his regular jutsu would fare against natural lightning. To be frank, the jutsu didn't stand a chance against the overwhelming destructive power of the natural lightning. Naruto grit his teeth as he and the others were forced to dodge another volley of electricity. They needed a plan, and they needed one quick if they were to survive. On the other end, Sasuke, Hinata, and Ryazetsu were forced to use copious amounts of chakra to stick themselves to the ground just to stay on the bridge. The man in front of them seemed to have an uncontested affinity towards wind jutsu, meaning that even though two of them had fire affinities, they would need one hell of a fire jutsu just to contest with the hurricane in front of them. Hinata grunted as she wordlessly activated her Byakugan in order to get a clearer layout of the environment. There was a lot of equipment and spare concrete lying around that started to get sucked into the storm, though Naoki seemed to want to keep them there as added defense. That was good, as it meant they wouldn't need to dodge random bits of bridge every few seconds. "Why don't you kids just surrender? You cannot win against my wind," Naoki commented with apathy. While he wasn't particularly merciful, he didn't really want to kill a bunch of newly minted genin. Sasuke grunted in annoyance as he activated his Sharingan, before squinting them in annoyance. "There's just too much chakra in the air with his wind. I can't see anything except a cloud of light green." The only good thing about the raging winds was their seemingly unbiased nature. They tore into Gato's men just as savagely as they beat into the Konoha. While this didn't really matter to the genin now, it meant that if they happened to survive this battle, there would be less thugs to deal with. "We can't get close. This hurricane even protects his back. There's no angle we can approach from that he doesn't have covered," Hinata called out as she scanned the battlefield. "Yeah, the hurricane. Sasuke started before hesitating and furrowing his eyebrows. "Hurricane. The only place safe inside a hurricane." Sasuke looked up sharply to stare directly at Naoki, only to see his clothes were barely getting ruffled. "That's it. You look like you have an idea," Ryazetsu questioned after seeing the look on Sasuke's face. "Actually, I think I do," Sasuke replied before moving closer to try and discuss his plan. Raiga was currently surrounding himself with a dome of lightning using one of his Kiba blades, while the other was used to send volleys of lightning at his opponents to keep them at a distance. "There's nothing you can do, brats. My lightning is too powerful. Why not just let me give you a funeral?" Raiga sneered as he reveled in the Konoha-nin's frustrated looks. That is, until he saw a mirror of what looked like ice where the only girl was previously. Wait, where'd the girl go? While he was yelling, the ex-Kiri-nin failed to notice an identical mirror forming right behind him, and out walked Haku, as silent as the night. Raiga only noticed the enemy when it was too late. Demonic ice mirrors. Suddenly, Raiga was surrounded by roughly 23 mirrors made out of a very sturdy-looking ice. While Haku was indifferent on the outside as she got her Senbon ready, on the inside she was gritting her teeth. "Geez, I'm way too out of practice. This jutsu is too difficult to keep up. I just have to hope that the others can use this distraction to get closer." Taking a deep breath, Haku stepped out of her mirror and launched her handful of Senbon at the man before stepping into another mirror a millisecond later. Rather than get settled in this mirror, Haku immediately left the safety of the ice to continue her barrage. Raiga grit his teeth as he could feel the Senbon pierce his skin in various places, though he protected the vital and fatal areas with his swords. He wouldn't be able to catch her, so the only logical solution would be to blow her up. With a crazed grin, the swordsman held up both blades and called down a huge bolt of lightning right on himself. Haku was barely able to escape the dome of ice before they were all shattered into tiny pieces. Thinking quickly and really showing how much her training with Zabuza has paid off, Haku quickly went through a few hand seals before shouting, Ice Release, Ice Senbon Barrage. Using the shards of ice from her previous jutsu, Haku cleverly turned them into narrow Senbon and launched them at her opponent before hitting the ground. Raiga growled before sending a single continuous bolt of lightning at the downed girl to try and finish her off. As the attack was about halfway between the two, Kakashi intercepted the bolt with his own lightning jutsu, the Reikiri, or lightning cutter. Kakashi's attack split the lightning in half as he advanced on the X7 swordsman. "Ah, there it is, that famous lightning jutsu of yours. Let's see how much lightning you can cut with that thing." Raiga yelled excitedly as he added his other sword to the stream, effectively doubling the lightning output. Kakashi grunted under the added exertion but continued his advance regardless. If his plan was going to work, then he needed to push through and get in close. Raiga's grin never wavered, and when the silver-haired nin got within a few feet, he suddenly disengaged his left kiba blade and brought it back to cut the Jonin's head clean off. Just as Kakashi was about to break through the stream of lightning, he quickly moved his lightning-covered right hand away from the attack and swiped it at the oncoming blade, knocking it out of the man's hand at the cost of taking the stream of lightning directly to his chest. "You bastard! Why won't you just die?" Raiga yelled in anger as he ran to retrieve his sword. "I don't think so, you lunatic." Only for Naruto to appear in his path with his own sword at the ready, his wind nature flowing into the hilt to create an almost visible blade of wind. "You damned brat, thinking you can fight a member of the 7 ninja swordsmen in sword combat. You must be stupid or cocky, and both will get you killed," he yelled out as he charged the young blonde. "Well, I did go toe-to-toe with Zabuza, so how hard can you be?" Naruto egged him on with a smirk as he met the man's charge. "That's insane. It depends on too many unknowns to work," Hinata commented, thinking that maybe Sasuke was spending a bit too much time around Naruto for his own good. "It's the only plan we have that might work. From what I've gathered, this hurricane works just like a natural cyclone. The eye of the storm is the only safe place, and that's exactly where Naoki is. If we can hit that point, then we may have a chance of winning," Sasuke explained further, trying to make himself believe it as well. "I think we should try it. It's our only hope at the moment," Ryu put in her 2 cents while keeping an eye on their enemy. "Fine, we will try it. But if it looks like it's not going to work, then you need to back off and regroup," Hinata conceded before voicing her conditions. Sasuke grinned and nodded his affirmation before running around the edge of the cyclone. "Come on Sharingan, don't fail me now." He could see the angle he needed thanks to his Sharingan and hyperactive state of mind, but seeing and actually performing were two astronomically different things. If he was off by even an inch, their plan would fall apart. Naoki was watching Sasuke run, seeing him as the biggest threat, before turning his attention to Ryazetsu as she was starting to run through a series of hand seals. Seeing his chance, Sasuke jumped as hard as he could into the ferocious winds, letting himself be lifted and taken even higher towards the top of the storm. It was working. His plan was actually working. Though, that's when the infamous Team 7 luck struck again. A large piece of concrete came up from behind the raven-haired teen and hit him in the back, sending him tumbling through the mighty winds. As he was spinning, Sasuke tried to get his bearings, only to see that his trajectory was completely off now. Throwing his arms and legs out to catch the wind behind him and stop his spinning, Sasuke noticed he was heading to the outside of the storm again, only seconds away from getting thrown out. That's when he saw another piece of concrete on its way to intercept his path, and another ingenious plan sprung to mind. Preparing his legs with chakra, Sasuke pushed his Sharingan to make sure this timing was right. As soon as his soles touched the debris, the Uchiha teen launched off of it into a straight shot for the top of the eye. Naoki watched Ryu go through the extremely long series of seals before he caught something. With narrowed eyes, the missing nin noticed that his enemy wasn't even charging chakra into the seals she was weaving. What is the meaning of this? Naoki questioned over the howling winds. Seeing as she was found out, Ryu dropped her hands with a sigh before looking up at her teammate soaring through the sky. I hope that was enough time. Growling at not being answered, Naoki's eyes widened when he realized something. Where was the Uchiha brat? Fire style. Grand Fireball Jutsu. The missing nin's eyes shot upward just in time to catch Sasuke finish his hand seals as he flew through the middle of the eye of the storm. He was immediately forced to direct his winds to focus on the large fireball shooting straight towards him, severely lessening the ferocity of the winds around him. As the fireball dispersed, Naoki's attention focused back on his surroundings to see Ryazetsu catch Sasuke, though the Hyuga was still lost to him. Intel. HYA. One Juken strike landed directly into Naoki's stomach, disorienting him temporarily. HYA. Ha. Two more strikes landed in their intended target. Hinata's job was simple. Take out his chakra as much as she could while he was distracted by Sasuke's fireball. Before Naoki could regain his bearings, Hinata had already landed 20 successful strikes, effectively taking a majority of his chakra, and subsequently, his wind, away from him. Once he got his footing back, the missing nin jumped back as far as he could, panting all the way. Seeing the three teens approaching on his position, Naoki used the last of his chakra to send a powerful blast of wind at the three of them, hoping to knock them off the bridge. Sasuke, seeing this, dove in front of his teammates and took the brunt of the attack, making sure he was the only one to go overboard. Sasuke! Hinata screamed out. Naruto grinned down at the unarmed and, more importantly, unconscious missing nin in front of him. With a little of Kurama's chakra added to his own wind affinity, his sword was able to overpower the lone Kiba blade. It also made it easier when the user of said Kiba blades spent more time launching lightning than actually fighting with his sword, so his prowess with a blade was significantly less than Zabuza's. Seeing as how his fight was finally ended, the blonde decided to check on the other group to see how they were faring. Sasuke. He could hear Hinata yell, but it sounded so far away. His vision narrowed as he watched his brother in all but blood fall over the edge of the bridge in slow motion. The blonde didn't even have a chance to yell out as rage flooded through his system. Kurama's chakra was pulled to the surface in a torrent as Naruto's bright blue eyes bled into red. Though to the onlooker's shock, they were very different from his normal red eyes he got when channeling Kurama's chakra. Naruto somehow had the Sharingan, and with two tomo in each eye right from the start. Without noticing the better-than-usual vision, Naruto unleashed red chakra from his skin in an explosion, knocking everyone off their feet, and sending Raiga tumbling into the concrete railing of the bridge. After merely a moment's hesitation, a three-tailed Naruto charged the green-haired missing nin and was at his position in an instant with a roundhouse kick already en route to the man's face. Before anyone could blink, Naoki was sent hurtling through a group of Gato's thugs that had survived the initial confrontation with the enemies. Seeing that the man was down for good, Naruto set his sights on the numerous thugs still hiding behind their boss. Said boss was now cowering in fright at seeing the menacing monster right before his eyes. Instead of trying to rally his troops, Gato started pushing past his goons to try and use them as meat shields. At seeing their boss running away, the thugs in the front tried to follow him, but most of them were too late. Before they could scream out, Naruto was upon them with fangs bared and Sharingan spinning. The blonde tore into their ranks and either sent them flying with a punch or kick or slice into their flesh with his newfound sharpened nails. After only a minute, the small army was reduced to one. One man still standing, and that was not by accident. Gato, for your crimes against this town and your attack on my team, I sentence you to a slow and painful death. With that declaration, the cowering man that was trying to buy the blonde with promises of wealth and women was grabbed with the cloaked hand of Naruto covering his entire pudgy face. The blonde could immediately feel the skin start to steam and corrode as the short man screamed bloody murder with his arms flailing. He even tried to pry the hand off of his face, only for his hands to receive the same treatment as his face. It took longer than Naruto thought it would, probably because of all the fat, but eventually the man stopped screaming and fell limp in his grip, to which was Naruto's cue to let the body go. Slowly, the crimson chakra cloak receded into the blonde's body, leaving the boy with his face down as the image of Gato's deformed face burned into his mind. Suddenly, in the newfound silence brought on by the absence of the army, the blonde heard a splash of water and looked over to see Hinata carrying Sasuke onto the shore at the beginning of the bridge. His eyes widened as he dashed to see if his friend was okay, Sharingan still blazing bright red, though not to his knowledge. When he arrived at the two, the young Hyuga heiress had already started resuscitating the Uchiha, though he was just in time to see Sasuke cough up what looked like a full cup of water mixed with blood and his eyes crack open slightly. Wah wah. Sasuke tried to speak, though he was too weak to get the words out. "What is it, buddy?" Naruto asked as he started applying his limited medical ninjutsu knowledge on Sasuke's chest, through his ruined jacket and shirt. What the hell's wrong with your eyes?" Sasuke finally rasped out, interrupted by short coughing fits before falling into the depths of unconsciousness once again. "What do you mean my eyes? What's wrong with?" At that moment, Naruto looked into the water next to them and gasped at the ominous orb staring back at him, analyzing every minute detail of his own face within seconds. Shuffling back on his hands and feet, Naruto couldn't shake his sight away from his reflection. How the hell? Naruto-kun, I need you to focus. Sasuke-kun needs your help right now, so we can worry about your eyes later. Hinata spoke up after seeing Naruto just sit there. Shaking his head, Naruto snapped out of his daze and looked back at his best friend in worry. "You're right, I'm sorry." With that said, the blonde seamlessly created a shadow clone. "Go find Kakashi-sensei and tell him to get his down here now." After the clone left to do its duty, silence settled between the two as they did what they could to mend their teammates' wounds. That is, until Naruto noticed Hinata biting her lip hard enough to draw a thin line of blood down her chin. In true Naruto fashion, the blonde shone a megawatt smile at the blue-haired girl. "He'll be okay, Hinata-chan. I promise, he won't die here today. He can't, you know. He still has to travel the world with me." Cracking a small smile, the Hyuga heiress replied in kind. "You're right, Naruto-kun. He wouldn't let himself die when he still has so much to accomplish." And so, the group of three did their best to keep the raven-haired boy stable as they waited for their teacher, hoping his chronic lateness would be put on hold just this once.